It's a bright Thursday morning. Welcome to the AM News. My name is Pakwisi Shandov. The National Association of Graduate Teachers, NAGRAT, says the latest inflation figures released by the Ghana Statistical Service gives credence to its position that government must increase the salaries of workers. Government is currently negotiating public sector pay with organized labor, and inflation figures have become a central pillar for labor in their cause for higher pays. We will hear from NAGRAT President Angel Kabonu in a bit. First, though, let's hear from the government statistician, Professor Samuel Kobna Enim, who reveals that year-on-year inflation for April has hit 23.6%, an 18-year high, as against 19.4% recorded in the month of March.
CPI for April 2022 was 156.5 relative to 126.6 recorded for the same time in April 2021. The computation of rate of inflation based on these indices, that is 156.5 for the month of April 2022 and 126.6 for the month of April 2021, leads to a year-on-year rate of inflation of 23.6. This literally means that prices of goods and services have gone up by 23.6% over a one-year period, specifically between April 2021 and April 2022. Relative to March 2022, this indicates a 4.2 percentage point inflation rate, higher than the rate that was recorded in March 2022, which stood at 19.4%. This culminates in a first quarter inflation rate of 16.3, which is about 6.2 percentage point what was recorded for the same time in the first quarter of 2021. On a month-on-month basis, that is between March 2022 and April 2022, rate of inflation was 5.1%. And again, this indicates a variation from 4.0 that was recorded on a month-on-month basis for March 2022 relative to April 2022, 5.1%. This is indicating a 1.1 percentage difference. This literally means that on a month-on-month basis, that is between March and April 2022, prices of goods and services have gone up by 5.1%.
We can now hear from the president of the National Association of Graduate Teachers, Angel Kabonu, who says that life has become unbearable for workers.
So, Mr. Kabonu, these new inflation figures show 23.6%. How will this affect negotiation with government for pay increment for workers?
Well, this is an indication that prices or the change in prices of goods and services is at all-time high. And this April inflation is the highest in 18 years. An indication that the worker is gradually getting worse off day by day. And like we said from inception, negotiations this year will be influenced by the inflation behavior, as one can put it, because you and I are aware about the proposals made by to PURC, by the water company and the electricity company. You and I are also aware of the escalating prices of transportation announced by the Transport Organization just a fortnight ago. And of course, general price increases of other goods and services. Government's own transaction fees is gone up the minimum of about 15%. So those are an indication that all these will be factored into negotiations so that at least the worker is cushioned from some of these pressures.
All right. Okay, Mr. Kabunu.
Let's talk tariff adjustments next, because the Electricity Company of Ghana is asking for a defined threshold for billing consumers such that anyone who consumes more than the lifeline pays for the entire kilowatts of power consumed. ECG argues that the 0 to 50 kilowatts threshold should only be used to preserve the poor. At the PURC CSO engagement forum on Wednesday, the ECG mounted a strong defense of its request for a 148% increase in tariffs, demanding full cost recoveries. Sylvia Noshi is the general manager for the regulatory management at the ECG.
Which now everybody in this room is enjoying, including rich and poor ones like ECG staff. So we are saying that the lifeline should be exclusively for those who require it. It should be 0 to 50. So if If I can afford my bill and I'm consuming 100 kilowatts, I should not enjoy the 0 to 50. I should be billed straight away with 100 kilowatts. We have sometimes people travel outside, not because they are consuming less than 50, but simply because perhaps there's no one in the house, and the bill that will come is going to be within that. And we say that if the lifeline customers are going to have a tariff for 0 to 50, then all other customers should be made to pay a flat rate. Currently, our non-residential customers do not enjoy the lifeline. And we agree that you have an ice water seller who is in a container and has to pay a high non-residential tariff or a commercial tariff. So we are saying that if we are going to collapse the multiple bands into just 2 blocks, then we should look at that category of customers where we could have something similar to the lifeline for a defined threshold, and that we are hoping that would be open for discussion if the Commission intends to go by that. But aside from that threshold, then all commercial customers would also have to pay a flat rate. And in terms of the cross-subsidization, we are recommending that the Commission starts looking at allocating costs based on the cost of providing the service at each service level. We know it's not going to be that easy, but we could start now gradually until we get there.
Family of the late lecturer of the Dr. Hila Lehman Technical University, Stephen Langton Mane, who was one of the 2 persons allegedly killed on March 17 by a stray bullet over a disputed parcel of land, is angry about the decision of the Y High Court to grant the suspected gunman bail. Spokesperson of the family, Jonas Derizatu, says that though they agree that all offences in the country are bailable, the reasons given by the court are not tenable. Rafiq Salam has more from Y.
This is the first time the case was heard at the Y Court, presided over by the supervising Y Court judge, Justice Yusuf Asibi, since the suspected shooting took place on March 17. The accused, 61-year-old former manager of the Fangwa All-Stars, Alhaji Inusa Abdurrahman, on 3 previous occasions has been remanded into either the police or prison custody by the one magistrate to enable police investigators and the Attorney General to complete investigations and for the Attorney General to press charges against him for his indictment. Inusa Abdurrahman was indicted by the Office of the Attorney General with 2 counts of murder and 3 counts of use of offensive weapons. Senior State Attorney at the Office of the Attorney General, Lawyer Shahid Abdul Shakur, explained what transpired in court.
An application for bail by lawyers for the accused person was served on us 4 days ago, and we filed an affidavit in opposition. And we deposed to certain facts, among others, that we do not feel that our witnesses will be safer if the accused person were to have his freedom. We also thought that the accused person was in a position to interfere with some of our witnesses. But the court disagreed with us and said that because of his age and because of his health, the court decided to admit him to bail. And that is perfectly within the court's remit. The court can actually grant him bail, exercise discretion in his favor, and admit him to bail. We oppose it strongly, but he was granted bail.
The accused was granted bail in the sum of 80,000 Ghana cedis, 3 sureties, with one of them to be justified.
The conventional method of removing the cocoa bean from its pod has always been with a cutlass supported by manpower. The process always leaves the farmers fatigued and exposed to severe body injuries. What if We had a convenient and safer means of splitting cocoa pods. An engineer at the Mechanical Engineering Department of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology has developed a mechanized cocoa pod breaker to ease the burden on cocoa farmers. On Tech Thursday, Love FM's Emmanuel Bright Kweku speaks with the developer of the eco-friendly splitter.
Splitting cocoa pods to extract its beans is a crucial step in the cocoa value chain, but the process comes with a daunting task of slicing the pods with sharp edges like machete, which predisposes farmers to severe injuries. Fortunately, Professor George Obin, Dean of the Faculty of Mechanical and Chemical Engineering, KNUST, is changing the narrative by introducing a mechanized cocoa splitter.
If you consider the target of Ghana to be the best country in terms of cocoa production, then it is very necessary that we mechanize the process. And therefore that process of splitting the beans and separating the beans from its attachment within the pod is very, very critical. And that is why we developed this machine, so that the process can be mechanized and we can increase production as well as productivity and efficiency.
The user-friendly machine has a 97% efficiency of splitting above 60 cocoa pods per minute, a technology which can maximize the production of cocoa in Ghana.
From our trials, we can split about 60 to 100 cocoa pods in a minute.
Professor Obin explains the operations of the eco-friendly technology.
So this is a conveyor. Okay, here you can put like 3 or 4 different cocoa beans. This currently runs at a speed of about 20 RPM. So you put like 3 or 4 cocoa beans, and so within 1 minute you can get 60. When we increase it, then we will hit 100. So this is a cutter, which is a blade. There are 2 of them. One is under and then the top one. And this is where we have the separation.
As the second largest cocoa producing country, the solar-powered cocoa splitter is a step in the right direction in consolidating efforts to build local capacities for cocoa value addition. For JoyNews, Emmanuel Bright Kweku reports.
A president of the Ghana Registered Midwives Association, Netta Forsen Akon, wants government to invest in its members in order to help reduce maternal and infant mortality and also help achieve SDG goal number 3. She made this call at the launch of the 31st International Day of the Midwife celebration in Techiman in the Bono East region. And as Sabit reports on this one.
The national launch of the 2022 International Day of the Midwife took place in the Techiman municipality of the Bono East region with a call for the establishment of a sound midwifery leadership to help improve service delivery across board. Mrs. Netta Forsen Akon is the president of the Ghana Registered Midwives Association.
At this time, we want to make it clear that our coming together under this year's theme is even going to send out more advocacy for the fact that when we have a sound midwifery leadership, we will be able to pull ourselves together strongly to make the needed impact. Nana Chair, the ICM has always advocated for innovation from us through the various themes that we have been working with over the years. Therefore, when we have strong leadership, it will lead to stronger and better service delivery. Thus, we can rightly say that effective leadership will help us get our services to improve.
She further called for a total support for midwives to enable them contribute their quota to improving the health sector.
We need you to help us, midwives, to help the nation, to help the health sector to achieve the Sustainable Development Goal 3. That is for good health and well-being throughout this year that we are celebrating 100 years of progress fostering midwifery leadership in Ghana.
Bono East Regional Minister Kwasi Adujan, on his part, called on the leadership of the Ghana Registered Midwives Association to work towards improving quality health care across the country.
We need quality midwifery care nationwide to assist in improving sexual, reproductive, maternal, newborn, child and adolescent health. And I call on the leadership of the Ghana Registered Midwives Association to partner government to achieve this very important goal. It is my wish that the day will offer you the platform to review your work as midwives and map out strategies to effectively deliver on your mandate.
Mr. Adujan, however, noted that government is committed to investing heavily in supporting more midwives for the improvement of maternal and newborn health outcomes.
Indeed, we are grateful for your exemplary work and commitment to saving lives. Nana Chairman, the theme for the day serves as a call to action to motivate midwives and support them with the necessary tools to deliver effectively on their mandate. The government is committed to investing heavily in the training of more midwives for the improvement of maternal and newborn health outcomes.
The program was held under the theme 100 Years of Progress, Transforming Midwifery Leadership in Ghana. Anna Sabit, JoyNews, Techiman.
The Catholic Relief Service is implementing a rural emergency health services and transport for a system development project in 4 regions in northern Ghana. I beg your pardon. The project would improve maternal, child and newborn services within the Chief's Compound program. It is also to strengthen the decentralization of health systems in these catchment areas. Here is a report by Martina Abugri.
With targets 1,434,452 beneficiaries across 200 communities in 10 districts in the Upper East, Savannah, Northeast and Northern region is estimated at $5.1 million. CRS Sector Influencer Manager Jamila Mashoud presenting a speech on behalf of the country director at the Maiden Incentive Awards ceremony of CRS outlined some challenges facing the service, which includes high illiteracy rates among community-based agents.
One critical finding from the assessment was the lack of basic logistics to support effective CHIPS programming. To address this gap, the RESPOD project has developed a maternal incentive award scheme that seeks to provide cash prizes to project districts to enable them to procure medical equipment to address these logistical issues.
Director of Nursing and Midwifery National CHIPS Coordinator, Dr. Barnabas Yeboah, urged the winners to use the cash prize received for its intended purpose, adding that it should be utilized within 3 weeks.
Within 3 weeks, you have to use the money. You have to procure what you have to procure. So let's be diligent because sometimes we create a lot of unnecessary bureaucracy, delays, which doesn't help the system. So don't delay so that you can buy your equipment to continue to provide your services.
The Zabzugu district emerged winners with 85 points and was awarded a cash prize of 34,000 Ghana cedis. The Zabzugu district director of health service, Victoria Teni Aboyera, said the money will go a long way in helping them acquire the medical equipment they need in the area.
The money, as we have been told, will be used to buy medical equipment for our chiefs, compounds, and then zones. Already, Zabzugu, we have fewer chiefs compounds, and because of that, we have operationalized 2 of our demarcated chiefs zones already. we will operationalize more, we will buy more medical equipment for the existing ones because they are virtually working with nothing.
The Central Gonja District Director of Health Service, Abukari Al-Hassan, who gave a speech on behalf of the winners, assured the money received will be put to good use.
I want to stand on behalf of my colleagues to assure CRS and our bosses here that we are going to ensure that we use this money judiciously and effectively to ensure that we use them for the purpose for which the funds have been given to us.
That's all on the AM News today. My name is Pakwisi Shandov. The show continues with Bernice and Benjamin.
All right, thank you for staying with us, joining us for the news review. Time now to get down into the papers and get all the action. We'll also be talking about topical matters that we're going to be exploring later when we get into our big stories. And let me say bonjour to Bernice.
Bonjour monsieur, comment ça va?
Oh, je me porte bien par la grâce.
Okay, that's where it ends. Thank you very much. Oh, je vais bien.
Put it there, put it there. You get swag like that.
Good morning to you. It's a pleasure to have you here once again. And like Benjamin just mentioned, we'll delve into the paper straight away. I'll start with a daily graphic and front page, which is very topical and important to all of us. Utility companies want increased tariffs, and we've been bringing that story yesterday and today. And in fact, on PM Express yesterday, the ECG's communications director did admit that the company is bankrupt. So this is almost like do or die. I mean, we don't have a choice. We've got to do this to salvage the company. So let's see how it goes. We know that there's a roadmap, or there's a list of activities that the PURC will be undertaking in arriving at the final tariff percentage. So there's still negotiation happening. And also on the front page, funding Africa's development, AFDB needs capitalization. That's according to the president. The story is on page 16. And danger of smoke revealed. Okay. So this is a big one, Benjamin. Inhalation causes hypertension.
Smoke, ordinary smoke.
Smoke.
Right.
For pneumonia, lung problems, we understand because, you know, when you inhale, you know, the whole breathing system includes the lungs and all that. Yeah. But hypertension, that's a big one. And we'll be bringing you details. Let me just bring you a quick wrap on that story.
I think we should get into the story a bit, find out why hypertension is popping up now.
Yeah, a new study has revealed that inhaling smoke from firewood contributes to hypertension, pneumonia, and disruption of lung functioning. The study by the Kintampo Health Research Center in the Bono East region, which is being conducted over a long period of time, is titled Ghana Randomized Air Pollution Health Study.
Okay.
Known as longitudinal research, and it began in 2013. So that's a very long time.
Ago. 9 years ago.
Yeah. So it assesses the impact of household air pollution on people's health, and the researchers are still following up with respondents. So let me quickly go into the findings. Dr. Abubakari says findings of the study indicated that when women use firewood to cook and inhale the smoke, it affected their systolic and diastolic pressure.
So we're talking about the heart here.
Yeah, so if you're somebody who constantly checks your BP, you know, these words will not be new to you. Blood pressure is measured using two numbers. The first number called systolic blood pressure. It measures the pressure in your arteries when your heart beats. The second number, the diastolic blood pressure, measures the pressure in your arteries when your heart rests between beats. Now, touching on the study, Dr. Abubakar explained that he used a population of 1,415 pregnant women and their infants in the study in the Kintampo area and South districts of the Bono East region. Now, as they cook and they inhale the smoke, it affects them, he said, indicating that children, particularly those under 5 years who stood by their mothers while they cook, were the most affected. So we are raising a generation of potentially sick children, Benjamin. But that's it. There's more on that story on page 3 of the daily graphic. On the back page, AFDB president applauds Pokwasi interchange project. And Philanthropist pledges support for Bugrugu Health Center. Benjamin.
All right, so interesting stories you brought in there, but let me also just mention that we have energy analyst Kojo Poku fittingly joining us this morning as well for our review. Mr. Poku, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Ben, and good morning to Benny. How are you?
We're good. Hope you are too.
Yeah.
I think we should name the show Ben and Ben.
Well, what do we do with the R in there?
No, just Ben. It's fine. Venice and Ben. I mean.
Okay, so Ben and Ben.
Hey, Joe, Ben and Ben. Everybody will just say hi.
Hi, we'll consider it.
Not a bad idea. We'll give you something for consultancy. Anyway.
I'm very well. How are you guys?
We're very well. We could do with lower fuel prices and lower inflation, though. It's becoming pretty tricky. But so Bernice was talking about some of that, the PURC and its engagements with stakeholders. And, you know, Bernice and Kojo, we've also had some of these utility providers tell us that, listen, we need this, else we're not even going to be able to deliver the services that we do as regularly, like clockwork, as sometimes we get it. But that ties into a story in the Daily Guide newspaper. Let me just get to that. It's on page 9. ECG proposes 148% tariff increase. And I just had to go back to that, as the Electricity Company of Ghana wants tariffs to be increased by 148% for 2022, and with 7.6% average adjustments between the periods of 2023 to 2026. Now, the sharp proposed increment, according to the ECG, is due to the gap between the actual cost recovery tariff and PURC-approved tariffs, as well as the cost of completed projects. But we also know about the engagements. And let me just add, the Ghana Water Company Limited, for example, is arguing that while the average tariff per cubic meter in 2019 was $1.27, same was reduced to $1.13 as a result of the cedi's depreciation. So you see how currency not being buoyant, or is it bullish, is also affecting business as far as our utility providers are concerned. So, Kojo, for me, I'd just like to run by you. You have your stance. The utility providers, yes, they must get what they need. But in this instance, where even today we are grappling with inflationary rates going up, where do we go from here? What do you want to see as the PURC meets these stakeholders?
Well, yesterday I was at the hearing at Alita Hotel, and I think my submission, I started it off by saying that we should situate this in a business context. We shouldn't situate this in a social context.
Okay.
Because these companies are limited liability companies that we want to basically be there to serve us. Now, nobody is saying that these companies should make profit, but at least these companies should be able to stand on their own 2 feet and break even. Now, if we look at the under-recovery, and when we say under-recovery, we are talking about bills that they are not able to pay. And this is not even talking about projects that they are doing. I'm talking about basic maintenance and things that they are supposed to do to keep the lights on. If somebody comes and tells you that, look, I am running a business, and this business I'm running, I'm not able to do the basic things I'm supposed to do because the rate you gave me, most of the things I engage in is dollar, and I import stuff, and I buy things, I give contracts out, it's dollar. When you gave me this rate, it was 5.5. 3 years on, it is 7.81. So in nominal terms, the rate you gave me has depreciated by this much, over 35%. Now, there are other things that we keep saying that we need ECG to do. We want ECG to be able to reduce commercial losses, which now is at 19%. We want ECG to reduce technical loss. Now, for the commercial losses, they don't have any excuse. The management, you just whip the cane and let anybody who's employed to do collection do the collection. But where the investment is needed is the technical loss. With the technical losses, when you have old machinery, you don't replace them, you only increase the losses. And these losses are factored into the prices. So if we initially do that investment, then in the long term, these machines are changed, the losses are reduced, then it is factored back in and we'll get a reduction in the prices. But let's put on record, it is not only ECG that came to ask for increase. Everybody, from GMPC to Ghana Gas to VRA to Gridco to Netco, everybody came and said that, look, the way things are going, I cannot operate if I am not giving something more. We all know that the Ghanaian is overburdened. I say that you are squeezing water out of a rock, because everything that is happening today means an increase and lesser money in the person's pocket. If you ask me, where do we go from here? I think the government should step up and at least give the Ghanaian or the government workers 5% increase in salary. That's the minimum the government can do. Then it will
hold it. We know about the 7% already, 4 to 7%. You're saying that as of now, an additional what? 5% should be added?
Yes, because that 7% that was done at the beginning of the year when we didn't know all these things were going to happen. You remember the president's famous speech of, we know how to bring an economy back to life, but we don't know how to bring people from the dead. Now, we have a pandemic, which is a hunger pandemic, okay? Because if you look at the rate at which everything is going up, and the only reason the public is fighting these increases is because there's no money to pay. But if the government, I understand, I know the burden of the people I employ, then the private sector will also follow suit and also increase salary. Now, government cannot ask the private sector to increase salary to the worker. If you use the government that you are the majority employer in the country, you don't do same. So, look, let's not overbeat the issue. These increases are needed in a way, but the only reason everybody is saying why now is because people are overburdened, and you can't come and add on without somebody having to give a little bit more. And that is why I think that we should just oppose it, because I say this, though. If we don't pay it in tariffs, we'll pay it in taxes. Now, let me explain. If there is a closed loop, the money is needed. ECG and all the companies in the value chain are owned by government. If the energy sector indebtedness increases as a result of under-recovery, then the government will be now burdened with that money, and they have to collect taxes from me and you to pay for that energy sector debt.
Right.
So, you understand? So whichever way, somebody has to pay for it. Okay. And people say, oh, government should pay for it. Who is government? Government is me and you. So we either pay for it in levy or we pay for it in taxes. One way or the other, we have to pay.
All right.
So talking about debt, there's this story on page 4 of the Business Finder is written by Julius K. Sachi. Stop granting loans, retrieve existing ones. GNPC has been advised. And Tema Oil Refinery owes GNPC since 2011 and is to the tune of $58.4 million. Government of Ghana also owes GNPC and it's $23.2 million as of the 2021 full year. The Ministry of Finance also owes GNPC $26.9 million and $17.2 million, all for enclave roads from 2015 to date.
That's a lot of OPPP.
Yes, and GNPC did not recover any loan amount in 2021. Now, this comes back to the question on the efficiency of our state institutions. Considering where we are now, you talk about the fact that we either will pay for levy, for these debts in levy or taxes. There's the e-levy people are dealing with a lot of pushback, but government finally had its way. Now we're looking at the prices of goods and commodity rising. You're talking about these companies, power distributors, demanding a rise because they say they are bankrupt. If they don't do this, they cannot get back on their feet. Will you say we have a crisis on our hands?
What was the question? I didn't get the last part. Sorry.
I'm saying, would you say we have a crisis on our hands?
Yes, we have a crisis, and that is the energy sector indebtedness. The problem, like if you want to start mentioning the energy sector, the list goes on and on. Look, the fundamental issue is that most of these indebtedness is a dollar-denominated indebtedness. And when we now receive monies locally in cities, it's like the ESLA, okay? We basically had a debt. We didn't pay off the debt. What we did was that we bonded the debt. So we moved the debt from one book into another book. Then we collected money and paid off the people that owed to go away, but the debt is still there in the bond. Now, what the extra is supposed to do is to collect money from the petrol and these bills that we pay to pay off this money. But guess what? The money we are collecting is in city. And day on day, when the city is depreciated, We are collecting less to meet an amount. So you need 10 cities to be able to pay off a debt. Then the city depreciates. So now you need 20 cities to pay off that debt. The city depreciates. You need 30 cities to pay off that same debt. So we are really on a treadmill, okay? We're not going anywhere. The most important thing for me today is not to look at these problems, because these problems have always existed. It existed 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago. Let's look at how to get the Ghanaians through this period. We all know this period is temporarily because of the war in Ukraine. We don't know how long it's going to go on for. But I think the government, the same agency it treated the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, should treat this as a pandemic, because we are in a crisis. Okay? Now, just to go and see the COVID-19 is gone, there's no more pandemic. Look, in the UK today, and I'm sure it's happening here, people are deciding what to heat their house or eat. People are having to sit at home and make a life decision. Do I eat or do I keep warm? And I'm sure today, if some of these increases happen, somebody will have to decide. Do I walk or do I take a taxi? Because if I walk, I can now have food for the afternoon. Do I put my light on or sleep in the dark because I can't afford the bill that's going to come? So government needs to come up front and center and say that, look, yes, we are in a hunger or no money crisis. What does government do for its people? And this is the time to step up.
Finally, on this bit, before we bring in the other papers, with all the suggestions you've put in, if government says it's going to heed your advice, would you say that it would get worse before it gets better? Or if government listens to the expert advice being, preferred on different platforms, we will be straight up on the road to better times?
No, it won't get worse before it gets better, because our economy is not resilient enough. One, we've not been able to go into the bonds market to borrow to supplement our budget. So what you see day to day is government going into the local market to try and raise money. Until we're able to go into the bonds market, we don't have any external money coming in, and the only ones we have is what we collect locally as revenue and what we can mop up in the bonds or in the debt market in Ghana. So that is a crisis. The second part of it is that, for me, look, if I say 5% wage increase, that will amount to about just 2 billion. Depending on what numbers you use, it's about 1.5 billion to 2 billion. Government can cut some of the programs it has, because bear in mind, we have government projecting to spend 125 or 130 billion in this fiscal year. You can cut 2 billion out of that and give an increase. Just say, look, I don't have money to do much, but I know your burden. Let me do something small for you. But it is going to get worse, because we don't know how long the external factors like the war in Ukraine is going to last for. And as it gets worse, we don't know whether other countries will now get involved. Yesterday, Boris Johnson went and signed a pact with Finland and Sweden. Okay, we don't know that Russia will go and attack in Finland and Sweden. We don't know that. But there is a lot of unknown ahead of us. But ways that we can start dealing with the problems we have now, and then worry about those ones that we don't know about.
All right, so quite a lot to do from our end as citizens, and especially from the end of government. But I just want to wrap. Hello, Kojo?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay.
All right. I'm just getting some feedback. I just want to wrap with the Daily Guide newspaper. I'll win 2024 elections. I found this, interesting. My own man, John Dumelo, he says he's going to take Ayawaso West Wogon. And if you recall, apart from the by-election in 2020, he lost by just a scrape about 2,000 votes. Now, I know where you lie on the political spectrum, but looking at the latest dynamics and the sort of push John Dumelo brought to bear in that constituency, would you say this is not a pipe dream, that this could become reality?
Well, that is my constituency, amazingly. The Ayawaso West Wogon is where I vote.
Right.
It's a big imagination that John...
It's a big word, imagination.
Yes, that he thinks he can win that constituency. Look, the constituency is a very big constituency, and it's one of the most conservative constituencies that you have. John's base is mostly in the East Legon area, but the Ayawaso West Wogon is bigger and much bigger than the East Legon area there where he takes support. If you go to the Jowulu Abelempe area all the way to the airport area, I mean, he doesn't have any base in those areas. So if he wants to win, well, he has a lot of tasks ahead of him. He has to work 200% harder. But I don't think it's going to be an easy task to win that seat from the FP.
Right. Well, thank you for sharing your thoughts on that bit. We'll get into other papers.
Yep, and the front page of the Daily Dispatch, down memory lane, 27 years ago, the May 11, 1995 Kumi Preko demonstration. And it's very interesting. It comes with a photo of President Akufo-Addo, and he was participating in that particular Kumi Preko demonstration. Considering the times we are in, I'm sure a lot of people, I don't know, 27 years ago, Kumi Preko demonstration happened.
Yeah, so 95 onwards.
Yeah.
So we had three of them, you know,
Yeah.
Kumi Preko, CMA Preko, BMA Preko.
I'm seeing a photo here, Benjamin. Just help me confirm. It looks like the former VRA boss.
Dr. Reku Brobe. Yes,
He's the one.
It does look like him.
Okay. Well, British-based Tariq Lamptey agrees to play for Ghana. Interesting.
Yay! Should we say yay? Now it remains to be seen whether he will actually be fielded. Pretty young, but it's interesting. We've got Inaki, the Williams brothers. We've got Tariq. We've got quite a few people.
Yeah,
now it's beginning to look to me, how are they going to fit all of them into the Black Stars?
And there are those who say there's a current crop of players that worked to get us to the World Cup.
Yeah.
And you don't want
No.
to, as if someone should work and someone should enjoy the publicity and all the excitement of going to the World Cup. I don't know if you're a football fan, Mr. Poku, but your quick thoughts.
I am a House of Folk supporter.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no. Kojo, this one, dear. This one, dear.
No. That's a good one.
Kojo, this one, you have jabbed me in my liver.
So let me just take your quick thoughts on this one. It appears that a lot of Ghanaian players based in European countries are appearing to suddenly enjoy the thought of playing for Ghana. There are those who say that's not fair to those who brought us to this stage, qualifying for the World Cup. But there are others who say the current performance of our team will not take us where we want to go to in the World Cup. Just your quick thoughts on that.
Well, I was going to say to Ben that, look, we the phobia say never say die, so I prefer the never say die.
Okay.
But let me comment on this topic. I honestly don't think that we should allow those that did not show up for the qualifiers to play in the World Cup. If somebody has expressed the will to play for Ghana, that's fine. Let's clap for the president. Let's welcome that president. Not for Qatar. Okay? You can be called for other qualifiers. We know you want to play. We'll put your name down. For other qualifiers, we'll call you to come and play. But for Qatar, let's give the honest. Look, it doesn't matter. It's a tournament. Look, the people who qualify, let them go and enjoy the tournament. Whether they do well or don't do well, we are at the tournament. They qualified to go to that tournament. Imagine when you play for a sport and you qualify the sport, and then somebody is your up, sit down, and somebody will now come and play what you qualified for. It's unfair. Because it's a 11 players team, or let's say a 25-man squad, people don't see the intricacy. But if it's, let's say you're a tennis player and you qualify Ghana for a tournament, then when Ghana qualifies, you are not the one that's going to go and play at the tournament. Or you have a 100-meter dash. You qualify Ghana for the 100 meters, and you're not the one that's going to go and run for Ghana at the 100 meters. It's not right. So I honestly feel that those that qualified us should be the ones to go and play. They qualified us. If other players can be added, one or two, maybe from the bench.
But Kojo, even stretching this analogy, players are in and out of form all the time. I mean, so it is only good that we have backups, if you like. I mean, these are not backup players, so to speak. Some of them are playing, they are in the first teams across Europe. But I'm saying that we need these players. I guess the difficulty would be getting that short list of 23 or so players for the World Cup, because it means then that will be official and some players will have to be axed from the list. But beyond that, I don't see what the problem is.
Okay, so let me explain it this way. If you're a coach, okay, out of the 23, 25 squad that you have your 15 first team. 10 you only add just to make up the number. So they're ones that you are not too sure about. Okay? Now, if you don't have a very wide pool to pull from, and you pull some 10, which you think, these are 10 that I'm not too comfortable with, right? Then all of a sudden, you have a wider pool of other players who want to come in. As a coach, your task is to now assess those other players and say, okay, out of the 10, which is my not-so-first team, who can I replace with? Then you now can bring somebody into that 10. Have your core 15. If you are a coach and you don't have your core 15 players, then there's a problem. Because if you are trying to bring into the team to replace your core 15, then it means that you never had a team in the first place. But from what I saw with the qualifiers, we have a core 15 player. It's the extra 10 that can bring some of these people to come in. When they come in, then they can probably are trained by their inclusion to get into the first 11. That is how I see it. But, well, I'm not the one who is coaching the Black Stars.
All right. So let me just bring this other one on the front page of the Daily Dispatch. Mahama will be best candidate for NDC and MPP. And guess who's saying this, guys? This is Gabi Asare Otredako.
He says
Mahama will be the best candidate for NDC and MPP. I'm not sure why the NDC came to play there, because if you read the contents of that story, it says a leading member of the governing New Patriotic Party, Gabi Asare Otredako, has said that former President John Mahama remains the best candidate for the opposition NDC to field as its flag bearer in the 2024 elections. This is where it gets interesting. According to him, the move by the NDC will inure to the benefit of the NPP, which is aiming to break the 8-year power cycle jinx under the 4th Republican Constitution. So it's more like it's to our advantage. So you just go ahead and field him. And we know that report that came out earlier this year saying that the NDC had to replace John Mahama as its candidate if it wanted to, the EIE report, if it wanted to win the 2024 elections.
That brings to mind a curious question. Kojo, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm with you.
Great. You want to be flag bearer of the MPP. I mean, I'll never let you go because I know you do one, and I've seen your posters in recent times. But if you got that slot, how would you feel going toe-to-toe with a John Mahama?
Well, look...
Do you think you could beat him?
Well, yes, I can beat him. But let me say this. It's not going to... Let me say this. And before...
You're a political novice. You've never been in this position before. You've never been flag bearer. No. John Mahama has been president. He's been flag bearer. He's been in and out. And you say you could come the first time and beat John Mahama.
If all the things you've mentioned is what goes against him in his against column, all the things you mentioned are the things that goes against him. Okay? Because you remember my story I put out there. If we are at a crossroads, the last person who asks for direction is especially John Dramani Mahama, because he's led out on the wrong path before. Let me explain what I was about to say. Look, I think that if anybody goes out there and thinks that you're going to easily beat especially John Dramani Mahama, you are in touch with the landscape in this country. It is not going to be easy to beat any candidate, be it Mahama for the NDP. I have always said that the both political parties have their 45% in the bank. It doesn't matter who is candidate. MPP has 45%, NDC has 45% before we even start any contest. Because that's how the country is divided. Okay? What we need is to now rejuvenate.
So you don't think it's about the candidate. You think already it's 40% plus for each, and then you have to fight for the spoils, the middle, those in the middle.
Those in the middle is what the candidate now comes in. The 45% is regardless of candidate. Those are party supporters. There are people who are NDC supporters regardless of who is candidate. There are people who are MPP supporters regardless who is candidate. Okay? Now, the 45% each party has. What you need is what will now give you the 50 plus 1. That is the floating voter or armchair politician. There is a youth in this country who are just not interested in politics today. Look, we had 17 million people register and take voters' ID. Only 13 million should. It tells you that there is a 4 billion Ghana city. There's 4 million people that sit at home with voters' ID and they are not interested as per 2020 census. So going forward, that pool of 4 million is going to increase. So anybody who wants to break a 8 or come back needs to find an ingenious way to bring the youth to the polls.
Okay.
And that is where that as the youth, as the voice of the youth, it's very easy, because if you see the joy and the smile in people's face when they see me, my brother, you need to be there.
Well, I can only wish you the very best. My final headline from the Ghanaian Times newspaper: IPP chamber kicks against cost recovery tariff demand by the ECG. Bernice?
Yep, and those were part of the stories we read earlier about that PURC meeting. But there's a story on the front page of the Ghanaian Times. Let's raise funds internally for development. President urges African leaders.
Right. He's been talking about the fact that
Yeah.
we shouldn't continue going to the Bretton Woods institutions, especially the World Bank.
And we know that, you remember the slogan of this government?
That
Ghana
remind me,
Beyond Aid.
Ah, yeah, Ghana
Yeah, it's
Beyond
been a
Aid.
while.
It came on in the course of the...
It's been a while since I heard that expression. And I remember before the e-levy was passed, there were those who say, we either go ahead with the e-levy or we'll be forced to go to the IMF. And so it appears the president is still bent on ensuring that Ghana and other African leaders get to the point where we are
even the
beyond
US,
aid.
the US gets aid. But of course, the mantra doesn't mean that we're an island in the global economic or financial network. It means that we'll try to do more for ourselves.
But there's this one on security, Benjamin. Schools in Boko closed down following renewed chieftaincy disputes. And Boko still appears to be a major problem when it comes to security here in Ghana. Talking about that, though, there's this story on the AfricaNews.com about 8 soldiers in Togo being killed in a terrorist attack. And this is according to government. And then the reason I'm bringing this up is yesterday on the 6 a.m. news, security analyst Dr. Vladimir Intridanso raised concerns that, look, it may be closer to us now more than ever.
Emmanuel Bombande has been, saying same. And it's getting closer. I mean, what? The last time about 5 kilometers? I mean, how far away is that?
Yeah.
And I ask myself sometimes, how prepared are we? I mean, if it's 5 kilometers away from your doorstep, that is a problem. And we know about why I get even more worried. We've seen what has happened in Nigeria internally. We've seen what has happened in the sub-region, all the countries surrounding us. Burkina Faso is dealing with its own menace, Guinea, Mali, and all of that. So if it's coming to our doorstep at Togo,
it's problematic. It's very, very worrying. And so now, we are dealing with all these economic issues. And then, you're also being told, don't forget that there's a threat on your security as well. Kojopoku, your thoughts on this, even as this appears to be inching very close to us? Hello?
I've always said that security a good security doesn't have to be seen. It has to be very invisible in the background. But that's when you know you have security. When you have visible security, it's only a show-off. And in Ghana, I tend to see more visible security than invisible security. But what we want to urge our security operators and the people in charge of our national security is to make sure our intelligence is great. Because intelligence is what you need to stop these things from happening. To be able to get in the bud and go ahead of it and catch these people even if before they come into your country, you need intelligence. So what are the intelligence at the borders? What are our intelligence in other parts of the country, in the border cities? Those are things that we need to work on. If it's here, then it's difficult to stop it. So for me, look, let's just make sure that we create the awareness as we are doing today for the security apparatus to sit up and make sure that our intelligence, as I said, is up to scratch.
And in that story, let me just mention, because our defense minister is cited in that story, and it says at a meeting of West African defense chiefs last week, Ghana's defense minister, Dominic Nitiwu, said that in 3 years, the region had suffered more than 5,300 terror-related attacks, claiming around 16,000 lives.
And that really is something to digest. Our sub-region is becoming a hotbed for a lot of terrorist activity, something we must nip in the bud before it overruns us all. And when you also consider how this has devolved into putches, military coup d'etats and all of that, and with justifications for those. I mean, in Burkina Faso, I think, justification that the president was not doing enough against terrorist activity. So there's a whole lot that we have to look at to prevent a further escalation. But this is where we'll have to say goodbye, Kojo Poku. But thank you so much for joining us this morning.
I thank you, Ben and Ben. Have a lovely weekend if you don't speak again.
All right, you have said. So, Bernice, time to go.
Yes, time to go, but we'll bring you sports shortly. I love sports, and so I'll be waiting to see what...
Have you heard that Erling Haaland has been signed, technically, by Manchester City?
That's a big one.
Yeah.
That's a big move.
Yeah.
Because a lot of teams have been trying to get him on board, but it's interesting.
We'll see whether he can step into the shoes of a certain Sergio Aguero. But my Manchester United is looking at Frankie de Jong, and we'll see how things pan out. You think now it's going so cool for you?
There are too many Manchester United fans in my home. There are too many Manchester United fans in my home. Truth is, I'm a Spanish girl. I enjoy Spanish football more, so I'm a Real Madrid fan, but in the EPL, I sympathize with Liverpool. So, well, it's looking good for them now. Let's see how it goes. And that final between Real Madrid and Liverpool is a big one for me, but
Liverpool will beat you guys. I predicted it here, live, on air.
You want to do this again? You said Chelsea. You said,
you want a bamba?
Listen.
You want to chill with the big boys?
Not Chelsea. You said Man City.
You guys go wrong, kitty. You
said,
go wrong.
Wait. We're quickly wrapping up, but I need to mention this since you've brought this in. You're so confident about your prediction.
I am saying that Manchester City, it was just a glitch in the system. Liverpool is going to beat Real Madrid.
There's no way Real Madrid is going to beat Man City. There's no way. And I said, relax. When it comes to Champions League, listen, when it comes to Champions League, it's Real Madrid. Thank you very much. Sports is up next.
After a little over 100 years, Accra House of Oak have finally found the vision of setting up a commercial center that will ensure that there are money streams into the club to ensure continued success. And also, the Minister of Youth and Sports, Midwifery, has assured athletes will be given the needed support to win medals for the country at the international level. And we'll go to England, where Manchester City have regained control of the Premier League title race as they won against Wolves. We've got this and many more here on AM Sports with me, Muftau Nabila Abla. But let's start with Accra House of Oak, who has become the first Ghanaian club to construct a state-of-the-art commercial center. Speaking during the unveiling ceremony in Accra on Wednesday, board chairman Togbe Afede, the fourth change, said the facility is demonstration of the club's commitment to commercialization.
This dedicated commercial center is a demonstration of our commitment to the commercial side of the business. As Honorable just mentioned it, you cannot do without resources in today's football. Gone are the days when players played for free and for love of the club. Today, players want to earn a good living from playing as footballers. And that is what we are doing here. This commercial center will be the center of all of our commercial operations. Our merchandise activities will be conducted from here. Sponsored activities will be conducted from here. Partnership activities, ticketing from here. And of course, we want to relaunch also the House News, both in hard copy and online. All those activities will be centered here. Once the postman is done, all other staff will move to Obiman, and the key executives will be at the new head office, which will be where Secretariat currently is. We strategically chose this place so that it's within walking distance When you leave here, within 2 minutes, you are at the head office. So we can collaborate very well, coordinate very well. Let me give another good news. We recognize the importance of our fans. So within the next 2 or 3 months at the maximum, we shall also open House of Folk Supporters Liaison Office. We have a commercial center, we'll have our head office, we'll have the Supporters Liaison Office, we'll have our academy, and ultimately, as Honorable hinted, our own football stadium.
Legends of Borussia Dortmund will be in Ghana to play selected former African footballers, including former Ghana captain Asamoah Gyan, on June 11 at the Accra Sports Stadium. The event was launched in Accra on Wednesday, and Joy Sports reporter was there and came through with this report.
For the first time in Ghana's history, Dortmund would grace the motherland with its legends for a friendly game. Delegates from Shooting Stars, the Ghana Football Association, and ex-footballers were in attendance for the press briefing of the event. For both parties, it goes beyond just the Legends game on the 11th of June. The partnership between Shooting Stars and Borussia Dortmund promises to be one that will see the improvement in talent development and coaching in Ghana, something most Ghanaians will love to hear and see materialize. Speaking to the media, Tony Obeng, Ghana Football Association Executive Council member, said this event is not about legends coming to play, but two countries coming together for a footballing cause.
Football, as we all know, is not just a sport. It is something that is so different. It's a very different activity. It brings people together. I think the most important thing. Apart from the players that it brings together, now we are seeing Dortmund coming to play Shooting Stars. This is two clubs, in a way, coming to play. But also seeing Germany coming to play Ghana. So you have two countries coming together because of football.
Focusing on the Legends game which takes place on the 11th of June 2022, legends such as Ajiman Bedu, Asamoah Gyan, CK Akono, and Fatau Dauda, who will be participating, share their views on the upcoming game.
Part of this event, there are a lot of legends coming up. They are coming to Ghana to grace the occasion, and me being one of the African players to be part of this event, I feel honored. I feel lucky to be part of this event, which everybody can see here. This press conference is one of the most organized press conferences I've been in Ghana. And I can't wait. I can't wait for 11th of June.
It's Dortmund. I played in Germany for a long time, and so I love the spirit of the Germans and how they do their thing. So the fact that they've taken this initiative is something very, very good. We need to support and embrace. So I am excited. I'm looking forward to 11th of June.
Well, we are expecting a very great event. It's been a while. They started this conversation with the Dortmund club, and thank God today we are able to launch it, and everybody should come to the Accra Sports Stadium to witness this great match. So we are ready for them. It will be an exciting day.
Decathlon Ghana, who is a sponsor of the event, say there was enough cause to be part of the project.
When I met Shooting Star, I was so amazed by the projects they bring to me, which is basically how to bring our legends together and how can a sport company like us can support them to make this event happen. So for me, it was just normal as the biggest sport company to partner with Shooting Star and make this dream, because it's a very big dream, make this dream happen.
Sami Enim Ado, a member of the Ghana Football Association Executive Council, expressed his gratitude to the organizers of the event.
Honor to the FA. We need to commend Shooting Stars, Isaac, Kweku, and the staff and the guys for doing a wonderful job. Someone like me, I've been yearning to do something like this to bring a great team, and I've been looking at Man United and all. If Isaac and Kweku are bringing in, and it's clear, it's finalized. It's a deal. The Dortmund legends are coming here every great player from Dortmund is coming here. All our legends who are joining hands. Man, it's a great thing for Ghana, and I'm very proud of my brothers. Kweku and Isaac are brothers. When they started coming to the game, I'm somebody they consulted, and I've supported them, and you will see me playing a major role to make sure this event becomes a great success. So, apart from myself, the FA sees it as a great honor to Ghana, because in this competitive world, in this globalized world, competition is important. Where the eyebrows are is important. Where you draw attention to your country is important. We are going to export Ghana in the way of football. We are going to sell Ghana in the way of culture. We are going to sell Ghana in the way of tourism. So it is something positive for Ghana, and I'm so proud of my brothers at Shooting Stars.
And talking about being proud of a brother, one athlete Ghanaians are proud of is sprinter Benjamin Azamati. He has called for support for Ghanaian athletes who are studying abroad. According to him, many athletes are neglected by government when they complete their course. Azamati was speaking to George Ade Jr. on a gold chase on the JoyNews channel.
After the NCAA season is over, we are on scholarship, and then for some months the scholarship ends. So once it ends, the school can decide not to make you use the facilities and all that, because the school is over, the season is over. But so after that happens, they don't take you to competitions anymore, because we just compete in the NCAA seasons. So if you are not a professional, and Joe, myself, and the other athletes are not professionals, we have to, have the funding to be able to, compete with these top guys. But unfortunately for us, we don't get that. I mean, it's a different ballgame together competing with collegiates and then to compete with professionals also. It's very, very different. I myself, I witnessed it when I went to the Olympic Games. It's very, very different. The mentality and everything is very, very different. So when you get a chance to, compete with all these people, then would you are ready to, compete at the world stage, compete at the Commonwealth Games, compete at the Olympic Games. But if you don't get that chance, I mean, we just go there and, don't have that mindset, compete and win laurels for the country. So it's basically about, funding when we are done with the NCAA season for us to go out there, put us into meets. I mean, we have the CEO can put us into meets, and then we go and then run with these professional guys. So it helps us, gain experience and also to face them at the World Champs and Commonwealth Games. It's basically that. It's basically about just funding outside the NCAA season to help us, get the experience and then, to be able to go out there to do very, very, very well.
As it stands now, Benjamin Azamati holds the second fastest time in the world after running 9.86 seconds. The fastest man, however, is Kenyan's Ferdinand Omanyala, who ran 9.85 seconds in the Continental World Tour in Nairobi just a couple of days ago. As he made it clear that they have challenges after school, the Youth and Sports Minister Mustafa Wisif has assured them of government support when they complete their courses abroad.
You should be rest assured that government is committed to ensure that even when they are out of college, government will find ways of supporting them to compete in any competition that they want to go to. Yeah. Because even when they are still in college, whilst they are in college, anytime the need arises and the GAA, the Ghana Athletic Association, notified the ministry, we support. Yeah. For example, the last time before the qualification they did in Poland to be able to participate in Tokyo, when the GAA called on us and said there was this competition that they want the quartet team to go and participate in, government responded and ensured that at least there was support for the team. Yeah. So they should be rest assured that anytime His Excellency, the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, love athletics, love boxing, love the non-football sporting discipline as well. And he will do everything possible to ensure that whenever and wherever they want to do, government will support. But we'll also appeal to corporate Ghana and also corporate institutions even outside Ghana that will also be able to support our athletes to also do so and help so that we can reposition even those who have not gotten the scholarship yet, but also very good athletes.
CPI for April 2022 was 156.5 relative to 126.6 recorded for the same time in April 2021. The computation of rate of inflation based on these indices, that is 156.5 for the month of April 2022 and 126.6 for the month of April 2021, leads to a year-on-year rate of inflation of 23.6. This literally means that prices of goods and services have gone up by 23.6% over a one-year period, specifically between April 2021 and April 2022. Relative to March 2022, this indicates a 4.2 percentage point inflation rate, higher than the rate that was recorded in March 2022, which stood at 19.4%. This culminates in a first quarter inflation rate of 16.3, which is about 6.2 percentage point what was recorded for the same time in the first quarter of 2021. On a month-on-month basis, that is between March 2022 and April 2022, rate of inflation was 5.1%. And again, this indicates a variation from 4.0 that was recorded on a month-on-month basis for March 2022 relative to April 2022, 5.1%. This is indicating a 1.1 percentage difference. This literally means that on a month-on-month basis, that is between March and April 2022, prices of goods and services have gone up by 5.1%. We do disaggregations at the higher level, specifically the food and non-food inflation, and also from a locally produced items and an imported item perspective. We see that we've sustained the variation between food and non-food inflation for both March and April 2022, which stood at about 5.3%. Specifically, food inflation for April 2022 was 26.6% relative to non-food inflation 21.3%.
And so that was the Ghana Statistical Service there delivering the details. Some economists have called this shocking. And here is why. Like you heard, the chief statistician say, 26.6% on food impacting or creating an overall inflationary rate of 23.6%. But here's where it gets interesting. This is the highest we've seen in 18 years, and it is becoming very problematic. When you look at diesel alone went up by 90.9% in that last window. So where do we go from here? That is the narrative we're looking at. If you look at the basket of items, March to April, 295 out of 307 of them increased in price. So where do we go from here? We'll be joining our guests on this discussion. Professor Lord Mensah is with the University of Ghana Business School. We also have Professor Gachi, who is with the University of Cape Coast Business School. Both of them joining us for this discussion. I see you, Prof. Professor Gachi. A very good morning to you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure having you. I would start the conversation from the standpoint of what you make of this recent increase. Like I said, and you know better than I do, 18 years, we've never seen such a rate. We've moved from 19.4% to an overall inflationary rate of 23.6%. Your quick reaction.
Well, I think we all know that certain events took place not quite long, and we expected that those events will have a pass-through effect for us to see upward development in inflation. But I'm not sure that we are expecting such a margin of increase from 19.4% to 23.6%. So as for the increase, it was expected, but the margin of increase was so surprising to notice when the Statistical Service presented the data, I think yesterday. There is another development that have been presented, and that has to do with imported inflation and local inflation. You realize that they are also almost at par, which means that policy measures within the country
are not favorable to contain inflation for those locally produced items. That is another area I believe we need to look at critically.
Okay. Now, let me just run this by you. How you say you were expecting an increase, but not an increase of this nature. It's interesting because some foreign economists have looked at this and, in fact, to cite Standard Chartered Bank's Razia Khan, who is chief economist for Africa. That reference is made to this spike being shocking and that it may pressure the central bank to further tighten interest rates. Do you agree with this categorization of the recent spike being shocking? And do you suspect that this, in fact, may happen, that the central bank would have to work on tightening interest rates?
If we look at the orientation of the central bank over the years, especially focusing on inflation targeting,
right?
It is very clear that would trigger upward development in the policy rates, not merely because of the increase from 19.4% to 23.6%, but also for the fact that there are new development taking place within the country that has not yet reflected in terms of the pass-through effect for the coming months. Those will also reflect in the inflation for May, for example, for June, and for July. So the trajectory going forward is also showing upward development, and the inflation rate as at now is also higher than what it was before the last policy rate announcement. And again, other indicators like the cost of exchange of the Ghana cedi to the dollar is not coming down. Other development in the fiscal side, interest rate has gone up. That is, lending rate across board has gone up. The last time that the policy rate was captured, we were talking about 14.4% Treasury bill rate. I believe now Treasury bill rate is around the region of 16.74 or so. So all these things are indicators that with this increase in the level of inflation, policy rate should reflect this development upward.
Now, so that is clear, but we look at our projections, and I want to find out what we are not getting right. Our administration projected an inflationary rate between 6 to 10%. We've hit 19.4%, and now we've added some 4.2% to hit 23.6%. What are we not getting right? What is it that we're not doing that is leading to this gargantuan, rise in inflation? Because mind you, as I mentioned right before you came on, in the basket of 307 items, 295 of them have their prices shooting up. That is a concern, isn't it?
Yes. I think that is the point I raised earlier on. So if you decompose or you disaggregate local products from the imported ones, all of them are seeing upward development in their prices. And that should tell us that we need to watch our policies, the way they are implemented, retreat and revise them to respond to the needs of the economy. Now, if you look at transport fare, look at diesel as you talked about earlier, and other items which are very sensitive to transport fares and general economic activity, you will not be surprised that the energy sector is so sensitive to many activities within the economy, and those items captured in the basket are influenced by many of these developments in this sector alone. So that tells you that much attention should be paid to the energy sector and do what we're supposed to do. Unfortunately, the government is looking at revenue as against making this as a convenient input that will control economic activity. So until government begins to moderate its revenue orientation regarding the energy sector, we may continue to have the influence of the energy sector on price development in the country.
And in the interim, if I were to ask you of a short-term measure that we can use to mitigate the situation, what would you say? Well, because I know that generally, in dealing with these matters, you would want to look at short, medium to long term, and the long term, of course, to ensure that you have some stability in that sense. But in the short term, people are saying that they are buying one tomato for 2 cedis. That is a great concern because food security is also important. So in the short term, if you were a finance minister, what would you do?
Unfortunately, I am not.
But if you were?
But I think I've indicated that the energy sector is so sensitive and is influencing a lot of prices in the country. Government have been advised to look at the taxes as one of the ways to moderating prices of fuel, and that will also moderate lorry fares because you need transport to bring the goods from wherever they are produced for the distribution purposes. So to ensure that we have a cost-effective supply chain for these items across the country. So I believe it is time for government to rethink about the taxes within the energy sector in the interest of price build-up in the country. I believe that is the low-hanging fruit that the government can fall on now. As it is, the data is also showing that most of our agricultural produce that we have in the country are hugely affected by inflation. Price development for imported goods and locally produced goods are not different. So we will need to go back to our agricultural policies and see how we can target those crops to be produced cost effectively.
Current inflationary rates in some countries as of last year, comparing them to this year, and it makes for painful reading, especially when you come to the African belt. But when it comes to Ghana, it appears, like we've said, in 18 years, this is the highest we have seen. So as it is now, looking at all the issues we are looking at, we are also still grappling with what is happening between Russia and Ukraine, still grappling with COVID-19, still grappling with funds that ordinarily would have come to us that are not coming to us, that we could have used to shore up our economy, because every other country is also battling with the same issues we're dealing with. Where does that basically leave us? Will this inflationary rate just keep going up? Is that where we are? Is that what we can expect?
Well, I think it is not merely about external flow of effects, but our own policy measures that we have taken recently are having counterproductive effects. For example, we have increased the policy rate to 17%, and we know that will drive up Treasury bill rate. It will drive up the bonds that we are issuing, and largely it will increase the lending rates in the country. That is a cost in itself, and that will have a pass-through effect in the cost structure of businesses and those who retail. So that is one. Then in the face of this, we have also limited the liquidity of the commercial banks in lending to businesses, the private sector in particular, by ensuring that when the commercial banks raise deposit, all the deposit is not available for them for financial intermediation. That is another counterproductive situation we have found ourselves in. So until we begin to revise some of these measures, the issue will linger on, and the economy of Ghana will be hurting. And also remember, we are talking about CPI, Consumer Price Index. This goes to the heart of cost of living to the average person. If okra is suffering from inflation of that nature, if mango, if watermelon, all these things are suffering from huge price hike, plantain and the rest, then you can imagine the burden that we are putting on the average household in the country. So the earlier we revise some of the policy, the better it will be for us.
And just to break it down for those of you watching us, we're in the top tier when it comes to inflationary rates in Africa. If you look at, we're in the top 5. And let me just break it down for you. According to some statistics that we have here, even South Sudan is looking at, something around minus 8.52. But you go to Benin with 2, Seychelles with 2.2, Cameroon with 2.37. You come down to Tanzania with 3.8 in terms of the inflationary rate. The Ivory Coast, neighboring Ivory Coast with 4.5, Mali with 4.5, Namibia with 4.5. Let's look at some other countries. South Africa at 5.9, Kenya at 6.47, Togo, neighboring Togo at 8.7. We have Rwanda at 10.5. And then, we have Egypt with 13.1. And then you come into our league. Burkina Faso at 15.1%, Nigeria at 15.92%, Sierra Leone 17.59%. And then you hit Ghana, which is the 5th highest, at least per this league log when it comes to inflation, at 23.6%, which is what we are dissecting this morning. Then Angola, 4th, 27%. Ethiopia at 36.6%, Zimbabwe, of course, we know the Zimbabwean situation, 96.4%, and Sudan at 260. We're at 23.6%, and we're feeling the pinch like this. Others are at 260, and that is Sudan. I don't know what it would be like to be in their shoes, but especially focusing on food prices, because it appears over the last few windows, food prices have shot up the inflationary rate. In that particular respect, what would you like to see, Professor Gachi, being done to grant us some security, if you like?
Well, I think I've indicated that already, that our agricultural policy ought to be looked at, how our agricultural policy is able to deal with food security, cost-effective production of our crops, and also low prices for our agricultural produce. That is what will sustain the average Ghanaian. So it should be of concern to us to revisit our agricultural policy. I say this because the Statistical Service has done...
Pardon the interjection, which specific aspects of our agricultural policy? I need you to share that with us.
That is why I'm coming to.
Right.
The Statistical Service has disaggregated the data and was able to point out the crops that are locally produced. They are not imported, but their price development is at par with the imported one. That is the indication that the Statistical Service has given to us. And those are the things that we need to focus on to see what we could do to ensure that production is cost effective, pricing is within the limit that is acceptable for a good standard of living. So I believe that that data is an input for decision making by those in the agricultural ministry and the government at large.
Do hold for me, Professor Gachi. Let me also bring in Professor Lord Mensah of the University of Ghana Business School. Professor Mensah, very good morning to you. Thank you for joining the conversation. You would have to unmute for us, please. All right. So we'll try to get Professor Mensah.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you now, loud and clear. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, good morning and good morning to our viewers.
Great. Let's just kickstart with the latest inflationary rate, 23.6%, highest in 18 years, 295 out of 307 items in the basket affected. What is your quick reflection on this? We've heard some foreign economists refer to this as shocking. Were you shocked?
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised. because, we talked about inflation, and we think it's as a result of, excess money in people's pocket. Therefore, they go out there and they are ready to buy anything at any price. Even if the price is up, they are prepared to buy it because they have money. Purely, we look at inflation as liquidity, issue, and for which the Monetary Policy Committee have been using the policy rate to target this liquidity. But for me, it goes beyond that. I think, the policy rate target for me is overemphasized, because the typical Ghanaian inflation, I don't see it to be an inflation that signifies funds in people's pocket, and therefore they are prepared to buy anything at any price at all. So even if ice water is 1 cedi, they are prepared to buy it at 2 cedi. No, it has our inflation.
Hello, Doc. All right, we'll have to work on that connection to get Prof back on the line, but he was making some very important points. Professor Gachi, so right before we bring Prof back, he is saying as well that he was not surprised, that this has happened, just like you had also shared your bits in there. But I'd just like to find out from you, is it any surprise at all, or was this to be expected? Because I do know that our economy, at least when it comes to real GDP growth, we're making quite an impact until weakened oil prices, gold prices, and other things hit, the pandemic and all. But now oil prices are back up. Are we seeing the benefit of that as far as our inflationary rate is concerned? Prof, you'd have to unmute for us, please.
I am not muted.
Okay, all right, I can hear you now.
Yeah. You see, when you look at oil, we need to look at the net effects. Yes, when oil prices are going up beyond what we budgeted for, we have a windfall in terms of revenue. But we are also importing so much of refined products into the country. And it is the refined products that have direct effect on economic management on daily basis, because the prices are translated into transfer fares, they are translated into the cost structure of businesses, and they are translated into pricing of their goods and services. So that is where we need to pay attention. If the crude oil price internationally is favorable, but we don't have some control over refining of our products, and we need to bring 80%, 100% of refined products from outside the country, we may not see that effect on inflation.
So looking then, since we're talking about fuel products, looking then about the jump in diesel, 90.9% within what? This short space. And I bring it up because of the impact it would be having. Farmers, their equipment, in industry, their equipment. Even we can rope in the transport unions. I was interacting with the Concerned Drivers Association recently. A lot of the buses they use are diesel. So what then would be the real impact of diesel specifically, or fuel, on our economy and impact, inflation as well?
I think that is the reason why when you look at the data provided by the Statistical Survey, they also provide the weights. So you will see that what you are talking about, the diesel, the weight is higher, and it is more sensitive to price development across board in the country. And that is why I indicated earlier on that we need to again look at our energy sector pricing and taxes within that sector, because it is very sensitive to price development across all sectors.
Let's also look at one of the components, cereal. And it's interesting because with the Russo-Ukrainian war, we've seen even more of a problem with that. The wheat especially, sunflower oil and all of that. Of course, not a cereal, but especially when it comes to wheat, we are seeing part of the impact more so in other African countries than Ghana. But when it comes to that especially, we see the percentage shooting up here as well. And this also is going to have a spiral effect. But I bring that in to look at how we should be cushioning ourselves as a country, because it appears each time it is a reaction. We don't seem to have mechanisms in place. So when it comes to those components that we are often importing, like cereals, a lot of it, what should we do to ensure that the inflationary rate, is something we can deal with?
Unfortunately, the data provided by the SASCA service classify wheat as locally produced cereal. So that will not sit well with what other countries are experiencing. But what it is that we need to pay much more attention to those who are engaged in the cultivation of wheat and all other cereals that we have identified. That is what we should be doing. There should be proper targeting. Here in Ghana, the Americans are giving subsidies to some section of their farmers. The Europeans are doing that. But even for us, if we are supposed to provide fertilizer, we are selling to them at half price. So we need to consider all these things and repackage a policy that would target the cereals that we believe that we are consuming. The weight of consumption is very high, and then it's likely to influence price development in the country. That is what agriculture policy should be doing. Agriculture policy is needed in managing interest exchange rate one way or the other. It's needed to manage inflation. So where agriculture policy is only about talking about planting for food and jobs, and they give figures, we don't know whether the figures are correct or not. That is not the way agriculture policy is to be managed. Agriculture policy should be sensitive to other major indicators of the economy. And that is what should be our focus.
Prof, hold for me. Let me bring in Professor Lord Mensah back into the conversation. Professor Mensah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
All right, please go ahead. You were making a point about not being shocked about the latest trend.
Yes, because we've been placing too much emphasis on monetary policy as a target, for inflation. I was thinking, okay, fine. Let's look at the fiscal policy side and how we spend. I have always been making, this analysis, saying that, look, if we spend very well and spend into areas that will reduce our import, it should go a long way to control our inflation. So our inflation in Ghana is not about liquidity. It's an inflation that is important. So when freight cost goes up, we are likely to build up inflation in our environment. When prices of goods and services goes up elsewhere, where we import from, it's likely to build up into inflation in our environment. And then also the way and manner we target our policies. So I see what is happening now, this surprise jump in inflation as a result of failure in our monetary policy and then failure in our fiscal policy as well. The fiscal policy has to do with the way we spend. When you look at the disaggregation of the inflation, clearly you will see that transport inflation is one of the highest.
Right.
Again, food inflation is one of the highest. Now let's look at transport inflation. If you take transport inflation, what is causing transport or fare prices to go up is one, spare parts and then fuel prices. We cannot control fuel prices because we are net importer of fuel. Now let's look at the other side, which is the spare parts. If you look at our roads that we do every now and then, this government, for instance, has spent a lot of money on asphalt overlay. We have asphalt already and we are overlaying them. building up the thickness to maybe to within a certain residential areas, whilst other areas don't have it. And we should understand that the more your roads are not good, the more cars will demand spare parts, and therefore you must import, spare parts. And as a result of that, build up into exchange rate, and then therefore has something to do with inflation. I mean, we cannot do the analysis technically so much for the hearing of our good people of the country. So effectively, I can say that the way we spend. Now let's look at agriculture. Agriculture, if you take, for instance, the produce that are coming out from the policies that were being rolled out. The Agri Ministry, of course, over the past 5 years, every year has had its budget increase, for the past years, because it has been a policy-focused ministry for which government wants to channel planting for food and jobs policy to ensure that there are jobs and there are food. If there's food, why would inflation, a driver be only food inflation? Those are the questions I ask myself every now and then. So effectively, our policies are not working. The fiscal policies are not working. The expenditure side of our policies are not working very well. Because if you go to the market today and then you buy a kinky of the same size that you were buying last year, 2 cedi, now you're buying it 3 cedi. That's about 50% increase in inflation. And these are basics that you need in life every now and then. If you were buying gas of about 90 Ghana last year, and now you're buying it around, 200 Ghana, that's more than 100% increase. So even the number that is coming out, the wages, I'm surprised is around 20, because I tell myself every now and then, relying on the basics that I consume every day, inflation is more than that 23% that is being paraded out there.
You think it's even worse than the 23.6%?
Oh, yes. I'm not surprised it's not around even 60%. Because the realities on the ground reflect different. The realities on the grounds reflect different. Because if you look at the daily consumptions, their price increase goes beyond the 20% that is being paraded. So effectively, we need to look at our policies very well. I think for the food, if for nothing at all, we should be able to have maize on the market to the extent that, because we've rolled out this policy, planting for food and jobs, for the past 5 years. And when you grow maize, within 6 months, you should harvest maize. If we have to go by the numbers, you should have realized about this, I would have, harvested about almost 12 times, maize, and then our warehouses that has been built as a result of waiting for this planting for food would have been full now as we speak.
Prof,
so now that there's a shortage.
So just quickly, I don't want to lose my train of thought on this. 2 quick issues. So we don't really have a large silo or storage system when it comes to all of these products. That is why we have gluts and all of that. But would you say then that on the back of that, in that specific regard, planting for food and jobs has not lived up to expectation? If we are here, where we are, is it failing then?
It hasn't. If it has, then the war that is in Ukraine shouldn't have had impact directly on us as a result of, telling us that because of what we call the war in Ukraine, we are not getting enough wheat. And of course, I know not most Ghanaians, consume wheat. But then in the end, if we
but we end up using it for bread and other things, flour, bread.
Yeah, of course. But then let's understand that if you're rolling out policy and you want the policy to have impact, you go into your portfolio of food imports and then look at which ones that you can grow in your environment in such a way that you minimize the importation. And when you minimize the importation, you make more of it available on your market, you control inflation, and your exchange rate is also controlled. So effectively, the policy that we are rolling out, which is planting for food and jobs, are not living up to expectation, as you indicated.
All right. Let me quickly. So did I hear you say that from where you sit, what do you see when you go out there to make purchases? Our current inflation, if you are looking at it as an economist, should be hovering around 60%.
from my daily consumptions, right? My daily consumptions, I see it beyond the 23.6 that is being churned out now. Because if I was buying gas, right, last year, and the gas was 90 Ghana, and I'm buying it 200, I see it to be more than 100% of increase. If I was buying a loaf of bread, 12 cedi, right, and now I'm buying it 20 Ghana, that's about 66% increase. If I was buying a kenke of similar size, around 2 cedi, and now it's 3 cedi, that is more than 50% increase. So for me, on the average, if you look at the weightings and on our daily consumptions, if you tell me price of my shirt has gone up by 50%, how many times do I change my shirt? How many times do I go to the market to buy shirt? But then on daily basis, I must consume, I must buy food, I must buy gas, and ensure that my family upkeep is on point. So effectively, I'm telling you that my daily consumption, that inflation target, the inflation that has been brought out, is too small. It has to go up a bit because the numbers that are coming out, and then from our daily expenditure, I can tell you that we're spending more than the 23% as price increase.
Now let's look at the transport cost differences, the differentials in there. We know that diesel has increased month on month by 90.9%. We know that when it comes to the transport costs, we are now looking at about 33.5%. And that is an increase from 17.4%, almost double what we saw in March, between March and April. I put that into the context of a 20% transport fare increment that we have seen in recent times. And we also know there is that convention that when the inflationary rate goes up by about 10%, now we've added another 4.2%, almost 5%, they would also increase. Where do you see the trajectory? Where do you see that going? Because there was 15% in March in terms of transport fare increases. In May, we've seen 20%. And on the back of this, it can only mean it will go further.
Yeah, for the transport, I can tell you that until we control, the fuel prices, right, which we don't have control on part of it. The only part that we can control is the taxes that government plays or the levies that government plays on these fuel prices, which if government is to scrap some of them, it should cushion transport owners against importation of, spare parts and all those. Then by then, we can have that kind of stability in fares. But then government also needs money. Government is desperate for money. So government cannot reduce or take off some of these levies as it is expected. So if you ask me of the trajectory, it's going to go up, here and there every now and then. Because once fuel price goes up, the transport owner is thinking about, okay, fine, how am I going to buy this fuel to commute within the next 5 kilometers as I used to do to make my sales? And then we should also understand that these transport owners also took loans from the banks to purchase these vehicles to be on the road, and they must pay back. Now, if you look at the system effectively, it tells you that, okay, fine, if government should direct its expenditure very well, construct very good roads to ensure that spare parts, purchases goes down, then on that side, it's more or less like an absorption for the private man to have that kind of comfort to drive on the road at a reduced, purchases of, spare parts. Then it can build up into the price reduction. Until we look at it in the long term, there's no way we can control that kind of fair price. Every now and then, it's going to catch up with us when fuel price goes up on the international market.
Do hold for me, Professor Mensah. Let me bring back Professor Gachi, who has also patiently been with us. Prof, so in the midst of all of this, when you look at the planned or projected tariff increments when it comes to utility prices, and you put that side by side with the e-levy and other taxes on petroleum that we're having to grapple with, What picture does it paint when it comes to the ordinary Ghanaian and his or her pocket?
Well, all those things that you talk about have a direct effect on the disposable income of the average Ghanaian, and what we will be seeing, or we have started seeing, is that there is huge erosion of disposable income, and the increase in the cost of living for the average Ghanaian that you were talking about. Of course, we need more revenue to do a lot for the country, but those revenue measures should be fashioned in such a way that they follow some acceptable principle and they are not too burdensome for the average person. But as we speak, the two items that you mentioned, e-levy already is a burdensome task, which is not acceptable by the majority of Ghanaians, but have been imposed through the lawmaking process. That will continue to have its pass-through effect in the economy. The same thing applies to fuel prices, as we have all indicated from the beginning of the discussion. Fuel prices, in particular, are very sensitive to our economic life. And the more they go up, the greater strength they have to erode our disposable income and increase the cost of living for all of us.
Prof, so I was speaking to you initially about whether you suspected the central bank would tighten interest rates. We know the lending rate has gone up by a record 250 basis points. Where does this leave us? What will the central bank likely inch toward, and what would be the likely impact? Because this inflationary rate must be dealt with. How? That's the question.
Well, the central bank is working with some metrics, and we all know that when inflation goes up by a certain level, and then the fiscal side demonstrates a certain pattern, you need to take a particular decision. So it will be strange for the central bank not to follow the pattern. It is very clear. Remember the inflation rate.
Which is what? What is the pattern?
The pattern is that inflation has gone up significantly. The fiscal side is distorted, and there is huge risk to the economy. Those things should reflect in upward development in policy rates. But the point I was going to make is that the policy rate, the inflation rate we're talking about is April inflation rate. That is past. There are developments that are going on telling us that inflation will continue to go up. When water tariff is approved, when the electricity tariff is approved, it will have a sensitive pass-through effect, and that will also put inflation on upward path, and that will have to be captured by the monetary authorities to reflect in upward monetary policy rate. And then the distortion will continue. The lending rate will have to go up. I believe my colleague was talking about the overly reliance on targeting liquidity. So the banks have been targeted by increasing the cash reserve by another 3%. What it means is that when they deposit money, 12% of that deposit will not be available for them to engage in lending, etc. So you see that effect on the under-subscription for our treasury bill, under-subscription for the bonds being issued in recent time by the government. It's not helping anybody. It is bringing much more problem for the economic takeoff for the country.
So then, to wrap the conversation with both of you, we'll try to get back Professor Lord Mensah. His connection seems to have a bit of a challenge. But the policymakers, those who matter in this space, they are watching us right now. They watch us every day. And you have the opportunity, Professor Gachi, if you could give them counsel as an economist, what would you tell them? I know you've enumerated a number of matters, but to wrap the conversation, what are the pointers you would give them to look at to cushion the ordinary Ghanaian as of now? Maybe a few points.
It's very simple. Policymakers should engage in coordination.
Coordination.
Exactly. The central bank should know its limit in terms of managing exchange rates. The rest will come from agriculture and other sectors. That coordination is needed to have a robust policy front that will deal with some of these issues in a comprehensive and holistic manner. The idea that the central bank has all that it takes to manage exchange rate is a fallacy. It is not true. There are issues relating to exchange rate management that the central bank does not have control over. The same thing applies to inflation and other development in the country. So policy coordination and engagement is the way forward.
Policy engagement and formulation the way forward. Prof, we're grateful that you could take the time to join us this morning, and we wish you the very best of the day, sir.
Thank you.
All right. That was Professor John Gachi, who is with the University of Cape Coast Business School, joining us for this discussion. In case you haven't heard, and I'll just see whether we can get Professor Lord Mensah back on the line for his wrap-up thoughts. But where we stand currently, 23.6% by way of inflation on the back of 19.4% in the previous month. So when you look at April, 23.6%, and we're in May. So whatever constraints we're seeing in May, as Professor Gachi has pointed out, we could even see another upsurge or uptick in the inflationary rate. And it is even more disturbing when you look at fuel commodities, because diesel is up by 90.9%, almost 91%. And the figures we're seeing now, government projected between 6 to 10%. The 23.6% we're seeing now is the highest we've seen in almost 2 decades. So giving us some cause for worry. Food prices alone up by 26.6%. And you also look at transport cost, which also includes fuel prices, going up from 17.4% in March to 33.5% currently. So what is going to be the way forward? Only time and maybe the economic management team will tell. Will we see food prices coming down so that things can stabilize better? Because food prices coupled with transport costs have led to the recent surge we have seen. Well, we do not have Professor Lord Mensah. He's unable to join us further, but we're grateful to you, Prof, if you get to watch for your time. We take a bit of a break here and we return with more talk about more pertinent matters. We know that the PURC has been engaging stakeholders when it comes to utility tariffs. More on that after the break.
Now everybody in this room is enjoying, including rich and poor ones like ECG staff. So we are saying that the lifeline should be exclusively for those who require it. It should be 0 to 50. So if I can afford my bill and I'm consuming 100 kilowatts, I should not enjoy the 0 to 50. I should be billed straight away with the 100 kilowatts. We have sometimes people travel outside, not because they are consuming less than 50, but simply because perhaps there's no one in the house, and the bill that will come is going to be within that. And we say that if the lifeline customers are going to have a tariff for 0 to 50, then all other customers should be made to pay a flat rate. Currently, our non-residential customers do not enjoy the lifeline. And we agree that you have an ice water seller who is in a container and has to pay a high non-residential tariff or a commercial tariff. So we are saying that if we are going to collapse the multiple bands into just 2 blocks, then we should look at that category of customers where we could have something similar to the lifeline for a defined threshold, and that we are hoping that would be open for discussion if the Commission intends to go by that. But aside from that threshold, then all commercial customers would also have to pay a flat rate. And in terms of the cross-subsidization, we are recommending that the Commission starts looking at allocating costs based on the cost of providing the service at each service level. We know it's not going to be that easy, but we could start now gradually until we get there.
The much-anticipated Civil Society PURC Engagement Forum on Utility Tariff came off with leading civil society activists participating to make their thoughts on the proposals known. The proposals from the utility companies have attracted wide public condemnation, with many questioning the quality of service from these utility entities. Leading the charge against the utilities at the forum was ASEP boss Ben Boache, who asked them to stop investing in projects that will not ensure proper returns.
We spent $1.2 billion paying for the under-recoveries in the power sector alone. That is 3 times more than what we spend on social infrastructure, education infrastructure, roads, agriculture, and social protection. I mean, it's not sustainable for us to keep doing that. When are we going to get the roads if we are pumping up such money into the power sector inefficiencies? We buy gas from the gas operators. We infuse the price of the gas in the tariff, but the gas price doesn't come out, and the government have to find money from the budget to go and pay for the gas, because of the inefficiencies that are happening. So the power sector and the energy sector in general has become a very crucial sector for Ghana that we need to resolve as quickly as possible. In 2 years, we had wasted 14 billion Ghana cedis, addressing the power sector problems. And we are not investing that much in roads. We are not investing that much in education. We are not even able to pay free SHS.
But energy analyst Kojo Poku believes it's time Ghanaians paid realistic tariffs to sustain the companies.
We talk about losses, technical and commercial losses. For the commercial losses, I always say that the management needs to be kicked by the ass to go and collect the money, because they employ people who are supposed to collect this money. But for the technical losses, you need investment to reduce it. Most of these machinery was built in the 60s and never been changed. That is why the losses are high, because electricity dissipates when the machine gets old. So you and I understand from the presentation, and that's why this public hearing was very important, for us to know what goes into it. Because yesterday people were panicking, hey, they're asking for 148, but today we are leaving here with an understanding that these are some level of necessary evils.
On his part, member of the Civil Society Platform for Oil and Gas, Kwame Jantua, agrees that some increase is warranted, but insists it should be lower than what they are asking for.
So we'll be continuing that conversation with Mr. Jantua here on the AM show, and also taking your views as well as regards these proposals by the utility providers. We also have the PRO for the Ghana Water Company Limited, Mr. Stanley Marty, and Andrew Mercer, Deputy Energy Minister, who will also be joining us shortly. We have Andrew Ijapa Mercer on the line. Thank you so much for joining the program this morning, sir. So we've heard from the electricity companies or the utility companies. We've also heard from the stakeholders who were at that forum yesterday. On the side of government, would we see these proposals by ECG, for example, the 148%, approved, or it will be a reduction like other experts have suggested?
Well, let me say good morning to
your cherished viewers. And it's unfortunate I couldn't join by Zoom. I'm actually on the move. But to directly respond to your question, I mean, if institutions of state, okay, have been established to evaluate the requests of utility companies, then really the position that government takes, as far as I'm concerned, with all due respect, is neither here nor there.
Okay.
ECG consistently in the past, okay, when there's a major tariff review, then meets with its board and management, takes a certain position, and then submit it consistent with the law to PURC. PURC doesn't just take it and take a decision on it. They do stakeholder engagement. And yesterday, they held stakeholder engagement with actors within the value chain. So you can see that there was VRA, there was Gridco, there was Ghana Gas, there was ECG itself, okay, and there was Ghana Water. They've made their representations. Some civil society organizations were also heard. Post that, PURC would then engage Parliament, Committee on Mines and Energy. They will meet with the ministry. They will meet with other stakeholders and also hold a public hearing. And then after it has assessed all the views that are canvassed by the various stakeholders, then makes a determination as to the level of tariff. And bear in mind that it could go either way, okay? Because we as a ministry have done some modeling, which we have put to ECG, that they have considered in their proposal to PURC with respect to the changing of the structure of the tariff. We believe that where you have a lifeline that then seeks to protect the vulnerable, but after that lifeline, there are bands that essentially, the higher the band that you fall into, the punitive, if you like, the tariff. And there was a basis at the time that the tariff structure was approved, why it was done that way. Because then the notion was to discourage electricity consumption. But now we want to encourage electricity consumption because we're going into industrialization, doing one district, one factory, doing all sorts of value addition that necessarily will require industry, especially, to consume the power that is available. But because of the band structure, industry gets to be punished for using electricity to generate the economic growth that we need. So we have said that, look, just like when you go to the fuel station and you buy a liter of fuel for, say, 10 pesos per liter, and this is just an example, okay? Regardless of the size of vehicle that you drive, you still pay 10 pesos per liter. Why can't we introduce that regime in the electricity distribution chain so that regardless of how high the consumption is, you still pay the same rate as if you elect to, do less consumption? That proposal in itself, based on the data that I have seen, leads to some reduction in some level of consumption bracket that people are already in, and some increases in the level of brackets that some other category of people are in. But all those are subject to the final evaluation and approval of the PURC.
All right, Mr. Mensah,
Okay,
I get the point. Sorry to interject, but I get the point that, yes, it is the PURC's mandate to engage stakeholders, look at the proposals, and determine the appropriate rates at which to increase the tariffs. But from your standpoint as a Deputy Minister for Energy, yesterday we heard from the Director of Communications for the ECG, who says it's a do-or-die affair. They need the money. They need the increase at the rate they've pegged it at, or else they may, run at huge losses. Already we are told that they are bankrupt. Is this justified?
It's not for me, okay, because I sit at the ministry and the information that I see suggests to me that for every example, 100 units of electricity that ECG sells, it is only able to collect about 60% of that. Okay? So what would be their financial position when they are able to collect 80 or 90%? And so
hello, Mr. Mesa, we are losing you, please.
Realistic. Is it affordable? Okay? And is it available? And so these dynamics, as far as we are concerned, is what it is that ought to inform the final output that ECG then is given the tariff approval to go ahead and charge. And of course, improve its own internal efficiencies to ensure that whatever it is that they sell, they're able to collect. But if you look in the document that ECG is also submitted, even the structure of the tariff itself is an incentive for consumers to want to do some illegality and bypass the metering system. And so, for us, from a policy standpoint, okay, changing the structure, recommending a change in the structure of the tariff, we believe would go a long way to make the price realistic, improve efficiencies in ECG's operations, and ensure that the power is available for the consumers in the manner that then helps in the economic growth that we want. But having said that, the point ought to be made that consistently in the past, if you look at the trajectory, every time that ECG submits its proposals to the PURC during the major tariff review, on one occasion that I recall quite vividly, in 2018, there was actually a reduction, okay, in the tariffs that they had sought. On previous occasions, some increment way below their request is what has been approved by PURC. And so it's a mix of evaluating all the issues on the table and then based on the mandate that they have in law, of course, based on the competencies that are within the PURC as state agency, then comes out with a tariff that will not unduly burden ECG, but then also doesn't afford ECG to pass on its own internal inefficiency to the consumers to pay.
But Mr. Mesa, is that not what has got us where we are today? Because over the years we are told we haven't been paying realistic tariffs for the services that we enjoy, and so the debt keeps compounding, ECG keeps struggling, and so we are here. We are where we are today because we haven't, you know.
See, I'm not going to argue with people who hold that view. Okay, that maybe the consumer, and that is all of us, don't pay realistic tariffs. But then again, the truth of the matter too is that ECG has inefficiency. I've cited the situation where the power that they purchase, there are technical losses, there are commercial losses. Some are permissible because of the infrastructure that they deploy in distributing the power.
And some of the commercial losses are because government institutions are not paying ECG what they owe them.
You see, it's one thing saying that you have somebody who owes you a debt, okay, and it's one thing not being able to even meet that bill and go out there to collect the debt.
And isn't this partly also due to government interference sometimes? Because we know how these things work in this country, Mr. Mesa.
The point really is this, that ECG's debt profile, which if it is able to collect, would be sufficient to pay for its operational expenses, then lead to a situation where the consumer is being asked to pay more because ECG is unable to collect. So clearly, I'm saying that there is no direct connection between ECG's inability to collect and the question as to whether the tariff that is being applied is realistic or unrealistic. Okay, so there are lapses within the space, yes. If those lapses are fixed, would there still be the need for a call for increases in tariffs? I'm not in a position to speak because it is not within my purview. But I'm saying that is why PURC is there, to evaluate all the issues and then, based on that informed position, make a determination whether there would be the need for any increase, and if so, by how much. Or that no, we think that there ought to be a reduction because the assessment of the information before us, ECG ought to be profitable and meet its operational expenditures with the prevailing tariff. That exercise is one that PURC ought to carry out. But I'm saying that from a policy perspective, we as a ministry think that the structure of the tariff itself ought to be changed. And that really is the role of the Ministry of Energy in all of this, to provide policy direction.
All right.
Not to remote control the management and board of ECG, but of course to support them to ensure that the power is available to the Ghanaian consumer. And as far as I'm concerned, if we're able to do that, that would be an able discharge of our mandate that His Excellency the President has given my minister and ourselves to support him in doing so.
All right. I'll have you hold at this point. Let me bring in Mr. Kwame Jantua. Thank you for joining the program, sir, and hold on. So we've heard quite a lot from the Deputy Minister for Energy, Mr. Mercer there. There's something, though, he hits at very hard, and it's the independence of the PURC in arriving at the percentages at which tariffs should be increased. Are you confident, Mr. Jantua, that the PURC will work or does work independent of government interference?
Well, good morning. Good morning to Deputy Minister, and good morning to yourself. The proposals that have been put forward, and if you listen to ECG, some of the reasons are based on the economy. So it says the rise in inflation, depreciation of the cedi, rise in metals, copper and aluminium. Are we saying that if they are granted their percentages that they want, in the next 5 years, they're not going to come back and ask for more, especially if in the next 5 years, inflation is still high and there's a depreciation of the cedi? Because that is what they are basing it on. The central focus is not based on their operations and the challenges of the operations, but based on the economy because of the reasons, the inflation and the depreciation of the cedi.
But isn't that expected?
Say that again?
Isn't that expected that when all these things you've mentioned increase, then there generally should be an increase from their point because they purchase?
It also depends on how efficient they have been in their collection of monies owed them. Because if inflation is going high and you've been able to collect all your debts, the rise will be minimal. Because remember, the PURC, what they haven't done is to apply the automatic adjustment formula, which is a softly approach. Every 3 months you look at it. Every 3 months you look at it. Just like we have with MPE and fuel. For the past probably year and a half, the automatic adjustment formula hasn't been applied. And so we've gotten to a point where the little drops of water that could have probably taken some of the pressures off the utility companies wasn't used, and now we've had the mighty ocean save us. The question is, can the people pay? Is there enough money within the tariffs we are putting out for the people to be able to pay? And if the people can't pay, is it that the kind of challenges that ECG, water are going through would be able to be solved? So, for instance, illegal connection, illegal tapping of water. Because if I can't pay, I still need water, I still need electricity. The task force that was put in place, where they were supposed to disconnect people who hadn't paid. What happened? When they started disconnecting some government institutions, what happened? We get orders from above. And so that task force really hasn't been able to achieve its aim. Yes, as inflation goes up, a certain increase would be required. And currently, ECG are telling us, well, let me not use ECG alone, utilities are telling us that if they do not get these increases, excuse my English, yamutu. But is that so? Is that true? I don't think that is true. I think they have put out the kind of percentages they have put out because they expect not to get those percentages. But then if it's reduced, then at least it would help them as to where they really want it. That's why it is good for them to come out and tell us A, B, C, D, E. Look, apart from the utility, VRA also has put in a tariff bid. And when you look at the VRA costs, installing of resources for supply of water, 10.7 billion. Aboasi gas interchange upgrade, 7.38 million cedis. The 10.7 billion was in dollars. Power connection in Tema, 11.68 million cedis. The TI plant, 5.86. They have spent money. No two ways about it. They need to recover. So they are asking for at least 10 cents. It's up to PURC. And it's good that they are doing these stakeholder
engagements
meetings. They are meeting the AGI today.
Yeah.
It's good they are doing it because they bear the brunt of bringing out the kind of tariffs they feel, according to the information they have gathered, would be convenient. Because, look, for instance, I asked the question at the event, why hasn't maintenance been a continuous thing? Because Ghana Water said they have pipes that have been installed 55 years ago. So I asked the question, are you saying that within this 55-year term, you haven't done any maintenance? Is that what you're telling us? And if that is the case, don't you have a maintenance budget in there? And PRC would have to question all these things and sit down with them and go through the figures they presented with a fine-tooth comb. Because the world today is not like the world yesterday. Inflation is what? 23.6%. And Ghana is one of the highest in the sub-region. And if that is the case, they need to be able to tick off and see those areas that would help ECG, that will help the utilities, and invariably help the Ghanaian citizen in terms of supply of these services.
All right, talking about water and pipes that may not have been maintained for 55 years, let me bring in Mr. Stanley Marty. He's PRO of the Ghana Water Company Limited. He joins us via Zoom. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'd just like to start off with you, giving us an answer to that question. Why haven't we seen continuous maintenance of our equipment?
Doing that over the period, but because of lack of funds, you are unable to do it.
Can you please?
Sure.
It's difficult to hear you.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so is it okay now?
Much better.
Okay, so we have been doing our best under the circumstances because we do not have much revenue to do that, but we still managed to do that because, for instance, we have a vision to be a world-class leader. And so the little tariff that we have, we manage very well to enable us to do what we have to do. So if you look at our presentation yesterday, you realize that we have done a lot of investment in extending pipelines, in changing pumps, and we still have some infrastructural stuff that we need to do going forward, so that at least we can improve on our services. So despite our current situation, we still work hard. But do Ghanaians want us to serve them the way they want? If you want us to serve you the way Ghanaians want, then we should be prepared to pay more. And we have just imputed our data into the template given to us by the PLC. Okay, so then you are able to see everything. It is not like there's any fake thing anywhere. Every data there is from our audited accounts, and so everything is the way it should be. And so based on that, we are able to tell that if we have to use only our operational mandate, our operational data, then the tariff will be up to 19%. But then if we have to add other capital investment, especially for the debt that we owe government, okay, then it will go to 25 cedis. But if we add all these, including the cost of our desalination plant cited in Teshinongwa, then it will go to 28.52 cedis. And this is per cubic meter. Okay, now per cubic meter, let me explain further, it's about 2,000 of our 500 ml packaged bottle, the volume. Okay, so we buy, let's say, a packaged water, 500 ml at 1 cedi at minimum. Okay, and then 2,000 of that will be 2,000 cedis, and it's just 1 cubic meter. Now, the 1 cubic meter that we are requesting from the people of Ghana is 19 cedis 52 pesos. Okay, that is for our patients alone. But if government decides to take our other burdens, including our capital investment, then it will go to 25 cedis or 28 cedis. Okay, so 1 cubic meter, even if you take the maximum, the upper limit, it means that 1 cubic meter of water will cost 28 cedis. Ghanaians are prepared to buy at 2,000 cedis packaged water, and they are comfortable. But when it's from the Ghana Water Company Limited at 28 cedis, then they have a challenge. If we want strong institutions and we want the GWCL to serve Ghanaians the way we all expect, then we should be able to prepare. We should be prepared to pay more. Now let's look at the depreciation of the cedi. The last tariff we had as a company was in 2018, and that was 6.9 cedis a cubic meter. As at the time, we are told the PLC that the cost of production was 15.6 cedis. They gave us 6.9 cedis. So since 2018, for every cubic meter of water that we produce, we lose 8 cedis. For how long can the Ghana Water Company Limited live or work like this? Meanwhile, we expect efficient services from the company. How can that be done when we are not paying realistic tariffs?
Mr. Mate, since the proposals by your company...
Let me add this.
Okay, please proceed.
That 40% of our income goes into energy. That is to ECG, NETCO, and GIDCO. 40%. Okay. Now, that means that if you collect 1 billion cedis annually, 400 million cedis goes to ECG. Now the rest is supposed to go for chemicals, to go for other inputs, change our pumps, extend pipelines, and all that. How can this be feasible? Now, per the data that we presented to PLC, okay, our annual expenditure is over 4 billion Ghana cedis. Meanwhile, per the tariff, if we have to collect everything per the tariff that PLC has given us, we'll only be collecting 2 billion cedis. So who will pay for the difference of 2 billion cedis?
All right, Mr. Mante, so
we really... Yes.
Yes, I was saying that since these proposals by your company and ECG went public, we've had people react on the show, and there are many who bring in the issue of quality service as against what they pay for. But you bring that as well, and you're justifying the need to have the tariffs approved at the rate you have submitted so that Ghanaians will be served, in your words, the way they want. I'd like you to tell our viewers and your consumers what will change if PURC decides today that we're going to approve the proposal by the Ghana Water Company Limited. What is going to change?
Okay, so in the last few years, we've had some 13 infrastructure projects come on board, which has brought in a lot of water. Now we expect some 12 projects more to come on board within the next few years. That can take our access from our current 79-80% to almost 100% access. So when we are able to get this tariff, then we are sure that we can hit that target. We already have a target to attain 100% access by 2030. But based on the projects that we have in the pipeline, if all things being equal, if the tariff that we have requested for is not changed and given to us the way it is, then Ghanaians can hold us responsible for whatever we've told them in the next 4 to 5 years. And
that's what I want you to be, sorry sir, that's what I want you to be specific about. So there's somebody at home, we want pointers by which we can say to the Ghana Water Company Limited, this is what you promised for the tariff you requested. And I'm asking you, what will change in terms of service delivery and the quality of water that people receive?
Okay. So now the presentation that we have sent to government, we are saying that we need within the next year or two some 700 million Ghana cedis to enable us to extend pipelines to more areas. Now, in some of the regions, our treatment plants are underutilized. We need to extend pipelines so that more people can be connected to our mains. Okay, so it means that when we are able to get this tariff, we'll be able to extend pipelines and more people will have access to water. We will be able to change our old pumps that are 55 years old. We're able to change most of them so that we can have the pressures that we expect, and then we can have more volumes of water into the system. As I speak, we have some projects like some improvements that we have to do in some of our treatment plants so that we can get more water into the system. Now, for instance, in Kpong, we are putting in some mechanisms which needs money so that we can get additional 8 million gallons of water to what we are getting in Accra. Now, for us to get additional 8 million gallons of water is going to change the situation in Accra, the water situation in Accra. Okay, and not to talk about other areas within the country. So we are promising that we have requested for 28 cedis per cubic meter. If we are giving 28 cedis per cubic meter, within the next 2 to 3 years, people should expect more efficient service from the Ghana Water Company Limited. If we are giving less, that will be less the cost of production, and that will also create more challenges for us, and people shouldn't expect that much. I have to say that within ourselves, within the organization itself, Managing Ghana Water Company Limited, in the last, let's say, since 2015, we introduced some performance improvement programs, such that at the time we're collecting revenue around 14-15 million cedis a month. Now, as I speak, based on our internal restructuring and our internal performance improvement program, we are collecting close to 90 million Ghana cedis a month. This has enabled us to do the improvements that we have seen in the last few years. Okay, and so if we are able to get more, then we expect that we'll be able to attain the targets that we have been talking about. So it's essential, it's important that this new tariff is approved to enable us to do that. Since time immemorial, any tariff proposal that we have made, we have had less than that.
Okay.
We expect the quarterly review as introduced a few years ago to also function. Now they have changed the name from automatic adjustment formula to quarterly review mechanism. Okay, we expect that to function as well, so that we look at the economic situation and look at other factors so that we can adjust the tariff regularly or on quarterly basis, so that we wouldn't have this quantum leap or this quantum proposal at the end of 2, 3, 4 years. Okay, so these are some of the things that we expect. But Ghanaians must be rest assured if we get what we want, we'll be able to do better. Although we are not getting what we want, at least we're able to serve Ghanaians to a certain extent. But we want to do better than we are doing. So we expect that Ghanaians will take it. Thank you.
All right. So,
Bernice, can I come in?
Yes, I was just about to ask you something, but go ahead with your reaction, then I can pose my question later.
You know, what the gentleman is saying is their line of business. It is something that is expected of them to do.
Your call has been put on hold. Please wait. Your call
has been. But the elephant in the room is the other side that they need to look at. One, Galamsey, the source of water. Two, sand winning around some of the areas where they are getting water. Some of these things, they need to be able to push government to make sure that it is stopped. Because next time round, if they've been able to do the things that they say they're doing, and we are still facing problems, they will blame it on these things. Look, I believe that Ghanaians would be okay if the utilities are providing a service that we don't have low voltage. So people's equipment in their houses aren't spoiling. We don't have frequent disconnections of water or frequent closing of water on and off, on and off, on and off. They need to be able to get Ghanaians to build confidence in the service they are giving us. Because that's a challenge.
But they are saying, sorry, Mr. Jansford, they are saying now that at this rate, we can only give you that quality service you want when we also get what we are demanding for.
So let them get what they're demanding for. What about the other issues like Galamsey, which affects the water supply because they need more chemicals to purify the water? How are they going to handle that challenge? Because they're not talking about that. Sand winning is another thing.
To be fair, Mr. Jantua, sorry to interject again, but to be fair, the Ghana Water Company Limited has, I remember very well when we were at the height of the war against Galamsey, and Mr. Stanley Marty, we've spoken to him a number of times. He's been very vocal about this issue of Galamsey and how it affects their operations. What for you, beyond the talk and the complaint on media, will show dedication to the fight against Galamsey and sand winning?
Are you asking me?
Yes, I'm asking you.
You're saying that what can they do?
Yes, because you're saying that they should talk about it, and that's why I interjected.
Put pressure on government. They should put pressure on. They should be seen to be putting pressure on government and not just only talking about it. They should be seen. Sitting with government and forcing government to find ways of sorting the Galamsey issue out.
Mr. Jantua, let me just give Mr. Mate the opportunity to respond. Let's hear you, sir, Mr. Mate.
Yes, I think yesterday at the program, I had the impression that Mr. Jantua doesn't live in Ghana, and so I'll pardon him for it. But we have done a lot.
I don't live in Ghana, where I live.
But even the media joined, okay, with the media coalition. We had military people going around. I mean, we've been talking about Galamsey for the past 10 to 12 years or so. There's been times when we've gone on several shoots with our ministers, with the military and all that. You remember that some time ago, 2 military guys lost their lives on the prowl when we had gone there to do a sweep on some of these people. And we have been talking about Galamsey for the longest time that we can talk about, but it is still ongoing. So I mean, it's beyond us. Okay, it's beyond the Ghana Water Company Limited. So if we all do not get
but it affects you too. It affects you. It could be beyond you, but it affects you.
Yeah, that is why I am doing my bit. If you know what I've been through in connection with this Galamsey thing, I mean, we have media guys, especially from Joy, okay, joined the military team, and the challenges that they have gone through, we all have been trying. Okay, so let us all get up our loins. Let us all put our heads together and see the best way forward. Let us debate the issue and see the best way forward. For me, I think education must work, and all of us must get involved. Nobody should be blamed, or nobody can be blamed. No single individual or single institution can be blamed for this, but we all must get involved. Those involved in the galamsey are related to us. They are friends. We need to tell them that you shouldn't dwell on your selfish activities and put the whole nation to ransom. Okay, and we are doing all that we can. And Mr. Jantua, please, maybe you need to read more about it, and you can talk to Nanaya, and Nanaya will tell you the job that we've done in connection with stopping galamsey. A lot has been done. I have videos, I have pictures with our ministers, with politicians, with. Quite recently, we went around with the Minister of Information, Minister of Natural Resources, our sector minister, and Madam Cecilia, Honorable Cecilia Blandapa. All of them we were on rivers. We're with military people. We're chasing these people out, and all that. The military got involved. I mean, a lot has been done, but it's still
let me ask the question. Right now, you're asking for a certain percentage tariff. What percentage of the unsolving of galamsey will affect you in the next 5 years? So that at least we as Ghanaians know. So that at least we know that, okay, you've done the work that you're supposed to do in terms of the promise you made us. But the galamsey issue, the sand-winning issue is a problem. What percentage would affect you come the next 5 years?
Mr. Kwame Jantua, in the next 2 to 3 years, if you don't stop galamsey, most of our river bodies will go extinct. And this we have been saying for a very long time.
Okay, so gentlemen, let me just come in here. I mean, this clearly shows that we need to have a separate and a deeper conversation on the issue of galamsey, and maybe bring all the parties in government to play. It's a good point, I think, to review the whole program and see how far we've done. But coming back to the substantive issue, Mr. Jantua, we heard Mr. Mate say earlier that over the years, the tariff increments they have proposed have been reduced. And it's the same for ECG, and we've been seeing these reductions over the years. And well, we are told that some way, somehow, this has also contributed to the very high percentage at which they are requesting for this particular tariff adjustment. Let's talk about that particular issue. Why aren't we paying, in the words of these utility companies, why aren't we allowed to pay the right amount for what we consume, considering its impact in the long run?
Well, I guess it has a thing to do with politics and the fear that if such percentages are agreed, it would affect the government in power rating when it comes to the election. But let's bite the bullet and let's agree to give them the percentages they are looking for, and let's see what happens.
You're willing to take that risk?
Sorry? Because look, it's true we are not paying realistic tariffs. It's true. No two ways about it. But let's take the risk. If over the years we haven't been paying realistic tariffs, they haven't been getting the kind of proposals they put forward for tariff adjustments and tariff increase. This time around, let's give it to them. And let's see, in the next 5 years, if there's a massive improvement in utilities, let's take the risk. Let's bite the bullet. Yes, I agree. When you look at inflation today and you look at the contributory factors of inflation today, it's going to be tough. But we can't live without water. We can't live without electricity. And over the years, they have been saying that we are not paying realistic tariffs. So this time now, let's give it to them and let's see what happens. Because it looks as if it's shifting towards government not agreeing to the tariffs that have been given, that have been requested for. Let's do it and let's see what happens.
So, I mean, your last point brings me to my next question. If it were left to you, would you say, despite all that's happening economically with the e-levy, the complaints, we should still, give it to them now, or probably hold on until we are able to stabilize the system and then we can go ahead with the request? If it was left to you to make that decision, which one would you take?
If it so happens that in the shortest possible time, we can stabilize the economy, we can bring transportation prices down, LPG bring down, food, power, fuel, services, we can bring them down in the shortest possible time. then maybe we consider. If it so happens that we can't, then let's look at the proposals that they've brought. Let's look at those areas of the proposal that will not cause too much trouble for their operations, and see how we can probably look at it. Or maybe let's graduate the percentages within the duration of the 5 years. There has to be mechanisms that we use to be able to make sure that they are giving us optimum service. But one of their reasons they've given is that over the years, they haven't been given what they're looking for, so the challenges have mounted up, and we've got to a stage now where that huge ocean is going to flood everybody. And so we need to sit with them. It's not just a question of sitting and saying, okay, we'll give you this, we won't give you that, we'll give you this, we won't give you that. Let's sit with them. PRC and government should sit with the utility companies and go through the fine-tooth comb, including probably some of the civil societies, sit down with them and go through the fine-tooth comb so that when it now comes out, the reasons given for giving them certain percentages and not giving them others should be made clear. Look, ECG is asking for street lighting tariff. What does that mean? Yesterday, they explained the street lighting tariff not to be the same tariff as the ones we are paying with our electricity bills.
Yeah.
Lighting everywhere, all these types of things. We need to look at it and see who is really responsible. Is it the local metropolitan assemblies that should also try as much as possible to look at street lighting in other areas? So there needs to be a discussion, a certain discussion, which doesn't only stay in the closet of government and the utilities, but also opens up, like they've done this, they're doing these discussions, open up so that people are part and parcel of it, and people get to understand them, and people begin to have confidence that the utilities are trying their best and the utilities are ready to give us the kind of services that we are looking for. You see, that confidence is important. Mr. Mate tells us all the things they've been doing. How many Ghanaians know it? How many Ghanaians see it? How many Ghanaians see the utilities come together and go to the chiefs in the local areas? Go to Asante, go to all these people and sit with them one-on-one. The public knowing what is happening. That confidence needs to be built, because in the next 5 years, come 2027, if they come back and ask for more than 148%, and Ghanaians don't feel they have given us a good service, it's not going to be a good thing. We need to build confidence in our utilities. And the only way we can do that is for all of us to be part and parcel and understand some of the challenges that they are going through.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Janto. Let me just take the final comments from Deputy Energy Minister Andrew Ejapa-Mercer. So, Mr. Mercer, you heard Mr. Janto there. He says, you know what, let's take the risk. They say we've not been giving them enough, and so that's why we are where we are today. Let's take that risk. Let's give it to them. He's given a lot of reasons to support that line of thought. What will your reaction be in concluding?
Just by the by, you know, coincidentally, we've been speaking with three Santa Clauses.
Sorry, Mr. Mercer, your line is a bit dodgy. I didn't hear that.
I was saying that coincidentally, we've been speaking with three Santa Clauses. Mr. Janto himself standing.
Oh, wow. That's nice. I'm an Infantaman girl myself, so it's fine.
Oh, there you go. But you see, the point really is this, and I think that Kwame Janto made that as well, that PURC's role really is to balance the economic sustainability of these utilities against the public's ability to pay. That is also critical in the consideration.
But should that be done at the expense of these companies that we expect?
So that's why I said
from?
that there has to be a balance.
Okay.
So yes, ECG and Ghana Water may make the representation. And so the purpose of all the stakeholder engagement that is taking place now is the fine combing of the numbers that they've churned out, okay, vis-a-vis their own inefficiencies or efficiencies or otherwise. And then the public's ability to pay. It is only after that exercise that the PURC will then come out to approve a tariff that, in their view, okay, achieves that balance. And so, useful engagement by all means. But I would rather that we allow the PURC to do its work, and ultimately when they come out, because indeed and in fact, you look at that I can speak directly to ECG. If you look at the numbers that my minister put out the last time when he held a press briefing in April at the Ministry of Information, you could see that when some private sector participation was introduced into the into ECG's operation, their performance relative to collections improved. But when the status quo then was reverted to because of the breaches that PDS transaction was occasioned and the consequent termination, we went back to square one, where clearly the inefficiencies that existed prior to the transaction, which had been taken away by that transaction, we go back to the same position. And so these are all issues that we need to allow PURC to evaluate and then come out with a recommendation that then satisfies the needs of the public interest and also the economic sustainability of these.
Mr. Mensah, you appear very confident in the independence of the PURC.
Absolutely. And I do not have any cause, unless, of course, you can provide contrary evidence to suggest that they are independent. Because, indeed, they are not even an agency of the Ministry of Energy. Okay, they report directly to the Office of the President, if you like, because the structure that the law sets them up makes them an independent, autonomous, to a large extent, organization. So far, I do not have any cause to doubt their ability to deliver on the mandate that has been given to them.
Mr. Mensah, we'll leave it here. I really appreciate your time this morning. Andrew Mensah is Deputy Minister for Energy, and earlier you had Kwame Jantwa, who is an energy analyst. We've been talking about the proposals by the Electricity Company of Ghana to have their tariffs adjusted upwards. And we also had Mr. Stanley Marty, who's with the Ghana Water Company Limited, wrapping up with him, sir. So, as it stands now, the Ghana Water Company Limited, I know, at least per my experience and from other people, the water we are receiving now is better than what was coming through our taps at least a month or two ago. And I want to believe it has something to do with treatment, right?
Yes. This thing, the water that we pump out for consumers, we need to attain a certain standard. Okay, so there are two standards. One is, or the universal one is from the World Health Organization, and then in Ghana we have the standards for drinking water by the Standard Ghana's authority. Okay, as a company, we do our best to do better than the standards for the Ghana Standards Authority. So our water meets the best of water qualities that you can imagine. Now, within the sub-region, within West Africa and the African region, and Ghana is seen as one of the countries that produces the best water. Okay, and it's even comparable to other developed countries and others. So we do our best to meet the standards. If we can't meet the standard, we don't pump into the system at all. Wow, and that is the challenge that we have in Western.
Okay, so let me find out, because I mean, what you're saying sounds really good to the ears, but I'm not sure that's what a lot of people experience.
Like perception.
No,
but I'm telling you the reality, and data shows. No,
okay. No. I'm not talking. Mr. Martin. No, don't get me wrong, please. I'm talking about what the last bit of your submission, where you said if the water doesn't meet the standard, you don't pump it. So exactly. what accounts for the brownish-looking water that comes through people's taps? And let me just use myself as an example. And like I'm saying, and I was honest to admit that I've seen an improvement, even with the smell of the water. Once you open the tap, you can smell that, okay, you can smell some form of chemical in there. I'm not sure specifically which one it is, But in the last month, about 3 or 4 months, we've been having brownish looking water. When you use that water to wash your white items and the water settles, there's a lot of dirt residue in there. So I'm just asking you what the problem was and what has led to the improvement.
So let me explain this. Okay, now with the water that we produce, before it leaves the treatment plants, it meets the best of qualities, water qualities that you can think of. And when it gets into the system, okay, per our human activities, we contaminate the water, especially in our homes. There are people who use receptacles and reservoirs and all that. And for years, those receptacles haven't been cleaned. Everybody must ensure that every quarter, if you use a poly tank, if you use any reservoir, you need to clean that reservoir at least 2 to 3 times in a year. If you don't do that, it will affect the quality of water in your tank and in your home. Okay, the water that flows directly through our taps are fresh, treated in less than 30 minutes before it gets to you. So it is as fresh as you can think of. Now, in certain times of the day, or maybe in certain times within the period, we get some burst within our communities. So we isolate such areas to repair the burst. Now, because our lines are buried, definitely in repairing, we'll get some fill to go through the lines. Okay. Now, so when you have your taps closed for a while and repairs are completed and you open, you realize that some filthy water will come out for the first 5 to 10 seconds. Now, that is as a result of the dirt that has seeped through the line, and that is the result of the flushing that we do, because we flush our pipelines anytime we are done with repairs. And that is why you're also saying that sometimes you smell some chemicals within the water. Yes, it is also because at every point in time, we do what we call post-chlorination. Within our communities, we have some vantage points where we introduce some chemicals into the system to take care of some seepage or some impediments that may have seeped through the pipelines before getting to our homes. That is why sometimes we will smell the chemical. Okay. So we go through every quality measure to ensure that the water that gets to your home meets the best of water qualities that you can think of. Okay, if you have any challenge in your community or in your home, the best will be to fetch a sample of the water and then you send it to the nearest GWCL office. Analysis will be done, we'll isolate your area, try to identify the problem and have it rectified. Okay, and that is standard practice in every part of the world, because there's no part of the world where they would say they don't have best. Every developed country, every country, every water utility, every pipeline is susceptible to some of these predicaments. And when they happen, we just have to isolate the area and then have it rectified. Thank you.
Thank you too for your time, Stanley Matthews, PR of the Ghana Water Company Limited, who joined us to talk about their proposal to have an upward adjustment for water tariffs. And he's been justifying it and says that in order to serve you the quality you want, these proposals or these requests must be granted by the PURC. We'll be keeping our eyes closely on what the PURC arrives at, the final decision it arrives at, and we will definitely let you know. You're watching the AM show with me, Bernice Abubedulansa and Benjamin Akapu. Coming up shortly, we'll be visiting our stands and speak to those of you who purchase newspapers as we discuss the various issues reported today.
Just been going through the papers. Okay. I'm sure you read the headlines. Which of them is of interest to you? Okay, but which of them are of interest to you in terms of the headlines?
You see, one thing I know is that when the first time I came to Ghana, I realized that everything was going on well. I realized that most things were not that expensive. But I don't know, when the president entered the second time, I realized that everything gets more harder and harder every day by day. And I see that a lot of people are complaining. Now the price increment of everything is affecting most people. And there are families whereby they cannot be able to even cater for themselves. So even based on the electricity now they are talking about, it's affecting, because now most people now, they can't be able to pay for their electricity. You see, it's affecting a lot of people, and people are always like, they don't know what to do. So the fact is that the president should better know what he's doing, because everybody is crying, people are bleeding. So he should know what to do. He should better know what to do to fix the government sector very well. So that is just what I can say.
But which of the papers, aside electricity, which of the headlines is of interest to you as a young man?
Okay, what I would just say is that based on how everything is going, the only thing I can see there is based on the electricity. So it should better just fix it, because doomsday is going to like come again. Because last year we discovered that we are having doomsays. Now it's going to come again. So it should better fix everything in order. That's what I can say.
Thank you.
I can be for home because so my court pay. But I am going to say every time you were prosecutors, you see our lawyers, our motion say. But anytime be on court, on the case be court, no, there were mistakes be brave or charges on court, no. It's a makwama say what there some court a check a bit the best 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. Now assembly in Kenya because prosecutor no or prosecutor assembly every time no or a mistake. It is all this thing, no. We still mine, no. We still mine, and a man nipan sunya, and interested about court. And the basa na fe na would ye ne never be brain a coso because of say, the case be court. Na afe the bedroom be necessary charges, no. Obia who what is going on? Obia who the coso.
So again, he's attracted to the new charges for Collins Dowda and 4 others, and he thinks that he's been to court before. He doesn't understand why most often prosecutors will be changing charges because of their own issues, and he thinks their ineptitude in a way. He says he doesn't understand why prosecutors would always have to change charges, and that is why court cases drag for that longer time before coming to a conclusion. He doesn't understand why that keeps happening, so he wants that changed. Thank you very much, sir. So we are still here trying to get other views. We get 1 or 2 more and then we can call it a wrap on today's edition. So we have another young man. Let's try and get his thought. I've seen you look through the papers. But why do you stop here to read the papers on a daily basis? Do you do that every day?
No, I don't do that every day. Mostly I have all the information that I want on my phone, on social media. So when I go there, I can get most of the information I want, and then Google and other platforms. So I don't buy newspapers every day.
No, so you don't even stop by to read them at all?
No, I don't do that.
All right, but today I've seen you reading. Which of the issues are of interest to you?
Let's raise funds, Ghanaian Times. So let's raise funds internally for development. Yeah, I'm interested in that one.
Why is this of interest to you?
Yeah, because development is what the country needs now. We need development, and in every aspect of our daily life, things keep on increasing, and it's key to develop the nation in all aspects so that the citizens in the nation will be free of any stress they are going through. Yeah.
Aside this one, which of them is of interest to you again?
Okay, so unless I go through... Dumso loans, and that one too.
So you are, which of them are you interested in again?
The Dumso loans, the insights.
Okay.
Yes.
Why is it of interest to you?
Yeah, my area where I am now, I stay at Ashalaja, and I posted it on Facebook some time ago. We normally have light out issues there. I've been calling the ECG day in and day out to inform them about the issues that we have there, and this is one of the key things that will bring development if the government and the ECG looks at it and solve it for the people, because a lot of companies are around there, and without lights their companies cannot be run, and it ends up breaking up. Yeah.
All right, so there you have it. He thinks that Dumso is one of the things that are interesting. Thank you so much, sir, for speaking to us.
You're welcome.
So that's it. You've heard from some of your colleagues who have been reading from the newspaper stand. Let's still get interactive. Share your thoughts with us on our various social media handles, and let's keep talking. This has been the interactive segment, bringing the phone to you, for a microphone to you, for you to share your thought with us. Live here on the AM show on JoyNews. Good morning.
For you at home watching us, or wherever you're watching us from, this is the time for you to also share your thoughts with us. You can call us on 0302-211-691 or 0302-211-692. Before I start taking your phone calls, though, we put up a question on our Facebook page. What do you spend a chunk of your salary on? Food, transport fares, or rent? We've been asking you to share with us. So quickly, we'll take those comments while we wait for your calls to come through. Patricia says, food and transport is killing us. Awudu says, loans, I always borrow and eat with it till the month ends and I'll pay, then I start again. And he says, it is not easy. And Awudu Jalo, Jean responds and says, Aish. And Minister Jean again says, try to manage your funds to eat from your salary directly. So start planning. It wouldn't be easy, but you have to do it, and that's what will help you. So Bedi Bewo says he spends a chunk of his salary on transportation. Abdul says food and other expenses. Mercy says everything: food, transport, rent, and other expenses. David Dre says he spends a chunk of his salary on accommodation and food. Sheila Azuma says food and transportation. Eric Ainchi says meager salary, and you're saying a chunk of salary. Okay, what we mean is that even if it's meager, what do you spend a chunk of that meager salary on? Prince Dua says food, transportation, and LPG. And talking about inflation. And Sami Tuga says there's nothing like chunk about my salary. Okay, I think people aren't getting the question well. But Popstick says he spends his on food and transportation. And Eric Mensah says his salary is 470 cedis, but he spends a chunk of it on food and debt. And Saib Usada too says food and transportation. So it appears that food and transportation is a big deal for many people. Let me say that beyond what you spend a chunk of your salary on, today we've been talking about the inflation rate as put out by the Ghana Statistical Service, and we've also been discussing the demands by ECG and the Ghana Water Company Limited for their tariffs to be reviewed upward, which will mean that you have to pay more. A lot of you are worried about quality, but the ECG, the Ghana Water Company Limited, says, look, we need this to give you the service you want. ECG says, we are bankrupt. We are almost there. If you do not help us, well, we don't know what will happen next. We have Emmanuel from Dansuman. Thank you, Emmanuel, for joining the program. Let's hear what you have to say.
Yeah, thank you, madam. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, please, so I want to say mine is on food and...
Sorry,
utility.
Emmanuel, can you speak up a little, please?
Yeah, I mean, mine is food and utility.
Okay.
Mine is on food and utility. Yeah, and I had a discussion about the water company. Please, during the COVID period, we're told we are giving water for free. But after that, they bill us with all those free water that they gave us. Then all of a sudden, the bills that we used to pay, it changes. So first majority used to pay 50, it became 100 cedis. So from the discussion that they not increase their water bill for some period that they are now increasing, I'm not getting it. Because there are so many things that I wish people could go out there and find out from the people that what actually were they paying maybe from 2019, 2020, and 2021. Yeah, then you could get the real explanation on the ground. And even with the water, I'm in Danshoma. Water flows once a week on Mondays. Once a week on Mondays. It doesn't flow even 2 or 3 times if you're fortunate. And it comes on Monday, then you go off Wednesday morning, Tuesday morning. And you are not giving us good service, and you are saying you come to increase the water to 330 something. This is serious. There hasn't been flow. And for the past 4 months or so, it is not even clean. So we are very surprised about increment.
Okay, so Emmanuel, so we are being told by these utility providers to pay the right amount for what we enjoy, and then we can get the quality that we want. We had Mr. Jantua say, well, they've been saying this for a very long time. Why not take the risk? Do you agree that we should take the risk and give them what they want? Then we can say then that...
I don't believe it. We are being
Sorry, Emmanuel, your line is bad. Unfortunately, we have to pick... Hello, Emmanuel, yes. I was asking you if you are willing to take that risk.
No, I don't believe in that statement.
Right, thank you for your thoughts. Let's pick Opoku from Cape Coast. Good morning. How's Cape Coast?
Good morning. Cape Coast is good. We are in Cape Coast.
Great. Let's hear what you have to say, sir. Hello, Opoku. Can you hear me, please? Do we still have Opoku on the line? Too bad we lost him. Please, when you call, make sure you're listening to me over the phone so you can respond to my questions in real time. If you listen to the question on the television, there will be a bit of a delay. But, okay, back to our question on Facebook. Nana Kudu says, talk about the sinking economy. Nanado is boasting about transforming the country. Let him know he failed. Okay, it's one of the reasons we are asking you what you spend a chunk of your salary on, because we know, considering all the hike in food prices and other commodities like fuel, a lot of you have been complaining that what you have to spend every day does not meet what you receive. The demands, your daily demands are not in sync with what you receive at the end of the month. We have Agnes from Teshi. Good morning. Thank you for joining the program. Let's hear you, ma'am.
Good morning, madam. Angry. And I said, and I said, yes, a Canadian, a baby. And so, and for a quite quiet fast to push you, I can't so fast cat to see dancing baby. Can you know, Tajo Mutagino, and Yasan Kitua? If you have a brain, a higher. To crack to a cow high any near ma. So that is electricity for no one can buy a can only a many beer. Almost can you? This just time can go to movie. I almost talk about minister. Anything almost quality cut only a humanity in year. Also to sure be Emma areas, no, may I toss and show me care woman then over the supply. So that you can empty one cat over spend it.
Mr. Also want to use your no trace a borehole and
Sana mitre.
Okay.
Sana mitre. No, we are bad and that pipeline mobile. This year too, 1 year to anything. That's also no. Almost 20 this year, almost a boost on the mass tank as a ton plan.
Okay. Agnes, Ghana Water Company Limited, or say, in Tia, near say Tia. Entiana. Yenya insurance services no say na ya penny nti omo say se wutua ma patro ma mi wie besrew nti omo say se wutua na ese se wutua na wo benya insuo no se ne awo pe no nti ye ne expert bi kasa ya o say okay so omo say ye ntua ne omo ka no na ye benya ne ye pe dia na ye try eno so
And no change to so economy is then so no about the Indian can would be TNC, would be Yakania, would be Paka, and then Mayama.
Matthias,
what to buy no my area. Now,
Agnes,
individuals are almost 2 cents, you know, okay, electricity, no, electricity in Guanabania.
Yeah, that's a so that's Agnes joining us from Teshi Benjamin, and she's speaking in the local dialect, Tree or Kan, and she's basically saying that, look, if it's not going to be a bother, why not just drill boreholes for us in our communities, and let's just go and fetch the water instead of these tariffs that you want to increase.
Is she considering the cost of doing that across the nation?
You know, people
plus people don't. You know, borehole water, usually when it comes out, it's salty, it's hard water.
Yes.
Not soft water. So yes, even when you want to use it for washing and stuff, you would need more soap. So there are so many complications to that suggestion.
Also, let's hear from Muntaka, who's calling us from Alaju. Hello, Muntaka, let's hear you, please.
Can you hear me?
Hello, Muntaka.
Yes, boss. Good morning.
Good morning. Could you speak up a bit for us?
Okay, is it better now?
Better.
Thank you very much. You see, this frustration Ghanaians are going through, sorry, but lack of a better word, gradually we are becoming a failed state. Reason why I'm saying this is...
We're becoming a what? Did you say failed state?
A failed state, yes. Where we have lawlessness working everywhere. When people have power, they think they can do anything they want with it without recourse to whoever is the beneficiary of whatever suffering that is going on. You see, this ECG and then water people, we need a total overhauling of all the system over there. In fact, the people over there need total overhauling. Why am I saying that? Alado North, where I live, on daily basis, we have at least 6 hours of light out. When you call the support, the
helpline.
Hello?
Yes, we are listening to you, please.
When you call the call center of the ECG, you would see mine. They will tell you that on daily basis, I keep calling them to report light out. And you know the funny thing? Sometimes immediately I call, then within the next minute or two, the light comes back on. Every day, at least 6 hours. Yesterday in the afternoon, the lights went out. When I called and complained, they told me, okay, they are now going to check on it. Before I realized the light had come on. And in the night, it went off, and we slept throughout the night light out. This morning, it came just less than 30 minutes and it went out again. I had to call them after an hour when I realized it wasn't back. Before they, okay, they are going to check on it. Then I told them that I am sure this thing that is going to happen, it will go off later again. I am certain that there are some places that need power that don't have it. And they will come and pick our power and divert it to some people.
Right.
The money that they are being owed, the money that some people are owing, you know, the big companies, the government institutions and all that, do they go for their money? If they are able to take all those monies, they wouldn't be coming to tell us they need increments in supply. That is one thing. The second thing is about the waterworks. We've spent about 4 to 5 days in Alado. Alado, of all places that years ago, if you don't have water around Newtown, Kotobabi, and then you sat down to Alado to fetch water. This time around, we don't even have a drop of water in our tap. For about 4 to 5 days now. And when you complain, they'll tell you we are not paying. We are not paying what?
So Muntaga, it's clear, and I like the fact that you're saying this specifically from where you live. I mean, Bernice, where I am to water, for example, flows once or twice a week. You ought to be sure to harvest water, else if you don't have storage, you're going to be stranded for the rest of the week. So these are real scenarios that are being painted there.
Yes.
You want more, but are you willing to deliver more? I listened to the conversation with Stanley Marty, and he is saying, you know, we need more, and we will deliver more. I think Kwame Jantua was also saying that for once, let's also give them as much as they want and see what they can deliver. I
see whether the story will change. And even Mr. Marty says, over the years, we haven't paid the right amount, and that's why they cannot meet the demands of the job that they're doing to serve us better.
When he says that per every cubic meter, they are bleeding 8 Ghana cedis. That is interesting. But you see, you must also be realistic. Look at the economic times. And the fact that salaries, especially, I mean, public, private sector, they are not going up. So how do the people cope?
The economic times which they are also affected by. It's just interconnected that way. But Martin is joining us from Isium. Thank you for holding on, Martin. Let's hear you, sir.
Thank you very much. I think there is a kind of a culture in Ghana which is very, very bad. It is that the government institutions them. Why can't they go for this money? In fact, if you are an individual and you owe these companies, they take vans, go around and disconnect you immediately. So if the government institutions are owing them, they should find ways and means to collect their debt and stop shifting cost onto vulnerable individuals in the country. That is my take. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martin. So Benjamin, Martin raises this concern, which is a valid one.
Very valid one.
Government institutions owe ECG almost 8 million Ghana cedis. I need to make the reference, but the last time I read it was that much.
No,
it
could
so
be
more.
I mean, you can pick one ministry, and there seems to be this bit about Yinchia. You understand? We're a government institution. Why are you hounding us, Yinchia? And that in itself is problematic.
I remember sometime when this discussion came up last year, there were suggestions that these government institutions must have prepaid meters installed. It could help because they...
It could?
Yes.
And why not? Why not in the first place? Because that's what I'm using. So if I don't pay up,
you don't get
goes off.
Yeah, you know. Kwabena is joining us from Second D. Kwabena, good morning. How's Second D?
Well, very well, thank you, Benny.
Great.
My concern is that, I mean, when one is investing in capital expenditure, it is expected that when your unit of production increases, it should, at the long run, reduce your capital expenditure burden so that your profit should increase, for that matter. Secondly, when you are a company and you want to do expansion, clearly, it's automatic that you are going to increase your revenue as well. So why should expansion now be a burden on existing customers? In so much that one should have expected that when you want to expand, knowing that you've made your projections of profit you're expecting, your expenditure will be matching those projections of profit you have. So when you say you want to do expansion, and for that matter, you should burden the existing customers, I don't think it's mathematically
if I get you right, sir. So
being commercially accurate.
So because they are not making enough, the rest of the population that, for example, need water and electricity cannot be served because ECG is not making enough to expand its infrastructure to meet them. And so you're saying that until they're able to make profits to match those infrastructure developments, they should hold on. Is that it?
I'm not saying they should hold on. One could even if they are sure of their efficiency, one could even borrow to make expansion, knowing that you are going to rake in profit to match those expenditures.
But here's the case: they are saying you're not paying enough. So I prepare banku and tilapia for you, and it cost me 5 cedis, and you are paying 2 cedis. How do I make profits then? So that's the concern on their side.
My sister, the community I have gone around a bit. I know communities that they tell me plain that the collectors don't fund for the revenue, both ECG and water. I'm telling you, they don't collect the revenue. If you produce something and you go and give it to people for free, and one person is paying, and for that matter, you say the person should pay more to cover those who are taking for free. I mean, right. What is sound reasoning in this?
Fair point, sir. Thank you for joining us. Our last caller joins us from Tamale. Hello, Joe. Hello. Too bad we lost him. But Benjamin, I mean, we just heard from the gentleman who called from Secondary. Sorry, his name just escaped me. And he is saying, and it's a point that the Deputy Energy Minister raised also, that look, you're making a lot of losses because you aren't going for your money. So why do you want to burden those who are paying, who are meeting their obligations? Why do you want to burden them when there are many other people who are enjoying the service for free?
And what is to say that when we increase the tariffs, that situation is going to change?
Good question.
So it could be that you're now going to, if I could say this, super overburden some segment of the population when it comes to these tariffs, while others will still be, they'll still be slipping through the cracks.
So it appears that you're being punished for doing the right thing.
Exactly.
And that's, and I mean, we've had occasions where we interviewed people who had connected illegally to electricity, and they say, well, these are some of the reasons, because I feel I'm being shortchanged. So why not try to beat the system? And so those are valid points that our callers raise. But unfortunately, we cannot take any more calls.
No, we can't. Time is not our friend. And we'll be coming away shortly at 10 with Joy News Desk. But before we go, how about Yankwatonia Makakra? Did you know that the income of a young entrepreneur from some selected businesses is exempt from tax for 5 years? Any young entrepreneur engaged in manufacturing, information and communications technology, agro-processing, energy production, waste processing, tourism and the creative arts, horticulture and medicinal plants does not need to pay income tax on these activities for their first 5 years of operation. A young entrepreneur engaged in a business that enjoys an initial 5-year concession benefits from the following applicable tax rates for an additional 5 years. Are you ready? Accra and Tema, you enjoy 15%. Other regional capitals outside the 3 northern regions, 12.5%. Outside these other regional capitals, 10%. And in the 3 northern regions, 5%. So if you want more clarity on this, just reach out to your nearest GRA office. And Ghana Revenue Authority, integrity, fairness, and service.
And water is life. Water regulates your body temperature and keeps you alive and kicking. Awake is premium purified water treated through strict purification processes to ensure that every bottle on the market refreshes you better. We have the perfect size for every occasion. 330 and 500 ml bottles to fit your pockets and bags, 750 ml for the heavy drinkers, and 1.5 liters for those who always want more, like Benjamin. We have also introduced our special 19-liter jars for offices and homes. Now you just need to stay awake with Awake purified drinking water wherever you go. Come on, grab a bottle of Awake water and get quality hydration. Awake purified drinking water, one for life. Now remember, for every bottle you purchase, an amount is donated to the National Cardiothoracic Center. It's produced by Casapreco. For bulk purchase, kindly reach out on 026-235-1251, 026-235-1251. Now let's go grab some water. We've been doing this for 3 hours.
Yeah. I was just about to say, let's wrap on this. Let me get you some
4 hours, actually, sorry.
Awake purified drinking water. And let's take a stroll to the GRA office.
That's a nice one.
Let's go check out some of what they have. It's always fantastic coming your way. Thank you so much for joining us. And from Bernice and Benjamin.
We wish you the very best of the rest of your day. Do take care. See you again tomorrow.
Bye.